we could start.
Okay.
Hold on
I
really
can call
quick.
the-
Hold on really quick. Let me get this started on the record before you.
Okay.
All right, you're good to go, Mr. Sepulveda.
Okay. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Cobre Board of Education into session. It is 5 o'clock. Please let the minutes show that Mr. Cordova, Mr. Gomez, Mr. Holguin, myself, and are you there, Mr. Guadiana? I guess not. The president, Mr. Guadiana is absent. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
I just joined the meeting, Mr. Sepulveda.
Okay. Entertain a motion for approval of agenda items.
Gomez, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
Cordova, second.
Second by Mr. Cordova.
Mr. President, can I make a point of order on
Sure.
item under unfinished business? Item B, demonstration of competency. This is just for information only, and we're bringing it back because we tabled it. And it was so that Holguin and Mr. Guadiana could receive documents. And I understand they received them, and they should have had time to look over if they had any questions. Therefore, it doesn't have to be an action item. That's what I'm trying to say. This is just added as an attachment to our current policy. So no action should be required. It doesn't need it. So I'm recommending that we remove the action, the pound sign on it, please.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Gomez, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
Gabe, I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any other questions on it? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin.
Yes.
Mr. President, point of order. This is
Go ahead,
Cordova. We have two motions on the floor, and we need two votes. Which one are we voting on? The approval of the agenda items or the removal of the action item?
Removal of the action item first, and then we'll go back to the other one. Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Okay, now we go back to the approval of agenda items. Any other corrections?
No, sir, not from the administration.
Okay, call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of January 26th.
I'll move. This is Gilbert.
Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second.
I'll second it, Cordova.
Second by Mr. Cordova. Any corrections to the minutes? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Moves us to update on unfinished business. Mr. Mendoza,
Okay, item A, review on status of school reentry readiness. This is an action item. Ms. Varela, please continue.
Mr. President, members of the board, I am going to share my screen with you all because I am going to be presenting a PowerPoint presentation in regards to the reopening. Give me a second here. Okay, are you all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna go ahead and present on the reopening. So as you all know, the governor did make an announcement that beginning the week of February 8th, which is today, all schools in all counties may offer in-person learning services in the hybrid model. And there are 3 different options for us to look at. The first option is for us to remain as we currently are in remote learning 100% of the time, but we are able to target small group in-person instruction for special education students from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade at a 5-to-1 ratio. The second option would be that beginning today, we would be able to continue with remote learning. However, we would be able to expand small group to include all students in pre-K through 12th grade, not only special education students, but any students that the principal and teachers determine to be at-risk students at a ratio of 5-to-1, so 5 students to 1 teacher. The third reopening option is to move into the hybrid learning model, where we would have 50% of the students coming on Monday and Tuesday, while 50% of the students remain on remote. And in meeting and talking with principals about this, we wanted to try to make it so that we could be consistent with families and have the same families all in school on the same days and all remote on the same days. So we looked at A through K would be group A and M through Z would be group B. So then we would switch those 2 groups, and on Wednesday, Thursday, A through K would now be at home working remote, while M through Z would be in school working in person. During this hybrid model, though, parents do have the option to choose to keep their children 100% remote if that's what they feel is in their best interest. This is what the hybrid learning model would look like. Again, you have group A would be in person Monday and Tuesday. They would be at home learning remotely on Wednesday, Thursday, and then we would flip. Group B would be in person Wednesday, Thursday, and learning from home Monday, Tuesday. For sports eligibility for high school students who choose hybrid model, students can choose to remain in remote learning 100% of the time. They would still be allowed to play sports if eligible, as long as they meet the NMAA guidelines for eligibility to play sports or clubs. There is another option available for small schools for reentry, and that's any school that has a student population of 100 students or less. They can choose to bring back all grades for in-person learning at a 5-to-1 student to staff ratio with no more than 6 people per enclosed indoor space, which would mean in each classroom. They do have to follow all social distancing guidelines and wear their masks and all other health and safety requirements that have been set forth in the guidance documents from PET, as well as the Cobre reentry document. In order for this to happen, and we do have 1 school in our district, and that's San Lorenzo, who would qualify for this option, they first have to get approval from PED and the fire marshal. So in the reentry guidance document that you all had a copy of, we do have sample schedules for elementary, middle school, and high school. So that you can see at the elementary, when you have your students doing hybrid in-person learning, the students that are home on remote would be doing bilingual and their specials, and then they would have assignments given to them from their teachers, as well as completing any computerized programs that we use in our district as well. At the middle school, they would attend all 8 periods for the in-person learning, and then their remote learning days would be more about completing assignments that the teachers had given them during the days that they were here face-to-face, or computerized programs as well. At the high school, their schedule, when they would be in person for hybrid, again, they would attend all their class periods during the time that they're here. And then at the end of the day, the students who are remote only would have their instruction from their classroom teachers that they've been with the whole year. And then on page 39 would be the remote learning schedule for the days that students are at home. And that would be for all students, and they would have just, again, different assignments and computerized programs that the teachers assign to them. Again, can a parent choose to keep their child 100% remote in hybrid learning? Yes, and that would be any grade pre-K through high school. We do have another option for parents to be able to do that. And we kind of talked about that at the last meeting. We did conduct some surveys. So I'm going to share first with you the staff surveys. So we had 160 staff respond to our survey. The first question was, what is your current position with the district? And you can see here that 53% of the staff, 85 teachers, 85 people, I'm sorry, that responded to this survey are teachers. We did have all the different categories: educational assistant, administrator, ancillary, custodians, maintenance, nurse, food service, secretary, central office, technology, counselor, and other.
Miss Barela, can you make that a little bit bigger?
I don't think I can, Mr. Guadiana, because I don't have the option to maximize the screen.
Okay, because it's pretty hard to read, and that would be kind
Is
of
it? It's
good.
pretty small.
Yes, even with glasses.
Okay, I'll read you everything that it says along with the data that's showing. So
Okay.
on the first question, the current position, there was 80 teachers, 23 educational assistants, 7 administrators, 14 ancillary, 2 custodians, 2 nurses, 1 food service, 6 secretary, 1 central office, 2 counselors, and 15 other. The second question that we asked our staff is, the state has given permission for all schools to transition to hybrid model. If it were an option, would you prefer to remain on remote learning or move to in-person hybrid learning for the remainder of the year? We had 75 staff members indicate they would prefer to move to the hybrid model, and 82 staff members preferred to remain remote. The third question, do you plan to take advantage of the opportunity to receive a COVID vaccine when it is available? 132 said yes, 24 said no. The next question, are you willing to return to in-person hybrid prior to receiving the vaccine? 90 said yes, 63 said no.
Is this a response of the students or everybody?
This is staff only, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. And then the next question is, if it were an option, would you prefer to start in-person learning hybrid model after receiving the vaccine? And the choices were yes, after receiving at least 1 dose, 22 people. Yes, after receiving both doses, 70 people. I plan to return regardless of receiving the vaccine or not, 52 people. and 9 already received their vaccine. And then the next question was, are you currently registered and on the waiting list to receive a COVID vaccine? 99 said yes, 48 said no, and 11 have already received their vaccine. We also sent a parent survey. We had 245 responses on the parent survey. The first question for the parent survey said, if given the choice, how would you like to proceed with your child's instruction? The first option was stay as is, 100% remote. There was 90 parents who answered to that, which is 36%. The second option, which is remote, but move to more small groups for all students, 18 people said yes to that one with 7%. And then the last question was hybrid learning. We had 136 parents, or 55%, say they would prefer to move to hybrid learning. The next question said, if you have children in both elementary and secondary levels, is your answer from number 1 the same for both levels or different for each level? And remember, the question was, how would you like to proceed with the instruction? So 165 said they would want it the same for elementary and secondary. We had 5 people that said they would prefer hybrid for elementary, remote for secondary. And then 17 people said they would prefer remote for elementary, hybrid for secondary. And then the last question was, which campus does your child attend? So 56 respondents were from Bayard, 52 from Central, 32 Hurley, 27 San Lorenzo, 90 Snell, and 102 Cobre. Okay. So these are the requirements that the state has given us that we need to be able to follow for reentry. They are in the reentry guidance handbook, and the first one is to begin. All districts across the state are permitted to operate strictly according to the hybrid model and COVID safe practices if the county meets health criteria. And we know that that has changed, although that's still the way that it's listed in the handbook. Number 2, schools must participate in a surveillance testing program. And as I've mentioned to you all in past board meetings, we do have 25% of our staff completing surveillance testing each week. So we are meeting that requirement. Schools must adhere to social distancing requirements. Schools must restrict large group gatherings. All pre-K and elementary schools must cohort or pod students into distinct small groups that stay together throughout an entire school day during in-person learning. And even though it's not listed as one of the requirements, one of the things that the state did for secondary, and I mentioned that last meeting, is that they're allowing group A to be a pod and group B to be a pod. So those would be their cohorts at the secondary level. Face coverings are required. Yes.
You mentioned for the surveillance testing with faculty, but you also have in the policy the same percentage for faculty and students.
Students don't have to get surveillance tested, only faculty, only staff.
It's in the policy. I can look for it later on, but
That's how we have it listed in the reentry?
yes,
Okay,
further down.
Okay.
There's one part where it says staff, and then there's another part where it says staff.
So there's 2 things when we're looking at surveillance testing. We're looking at surveillance testing as far as actually getting a COVID test, but then we're also looking at surveillance screening when staff and students come to campus.
Okay.
So that's on number 7. All staff have to be screened on a daily basis for temperature checks and review of COVID-19 symptoms, which is, again, do you have fever? Do you have cough? Do you have a sore throat? Have you been out of town? Those questions. And we're not required to screen students, but in our district, we have decided that at least to start, that's what we want to do, is go ahead and screen students when we move to the hybrid model. And Mr. Guadiana, I will go back if we did indicate on there that students have to be surveillance testing, I will correct that because it's only staff.
Okay.
But Judge, and what about those students or those faculty members that show no symptoms but yet test positive?
And sir, that's why we're doing surveillance testing, because we have been able to catch some of those since we are doing the surveillance testing, because we do have people that are asymptomatic, who have no fever, who have none of the symptoms of COVID, but we are able to pick them up through surveillance testing. And that's the big key for surveillance testing, is so that we can try to pick up those people, because otherwise they wouldn't know and we wouldn't know that they do test positive. So that's the whole basis behind the surveillance testing. And even though in the state guidance, it does say that if we're in yellow, we're only required to surveillance test 12.5% of our staff. Our district has decided that we want to keep it 25% each week, because say that we are in yellow, so we're doing 12%, but then next week we turn to red, we got to up it to 25%. So now we have to change our schedule. So we just wanted to go ahead and remain consistent and keep 25% each week across the board.
Yeah, because we have been red here the last 3 or 4 days already again. And
Okay.
and yesterday we had a total of 19 people test positive in the county.
I saw that.
And I can imagine what's going to happen here by Wednesday or Thursday of this week after Super Bowl Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay.
But regarding that testing, when you go to 1 week to another week, how do you select who gets tested?
So as it's indicated in the reentry guidance document, the site administrator and school nurses work together to develop that schedule to know who tests week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4.
Okay, so it's not going to be repeat test on the same person.
No, sir. So that by the end of the month, everybody in a building has been tested.
Good. Page 26, surveillance testing, bullet 1 is the one that lists that 25% of faculty and staff, including coach staff.
Including coaches.
Oh, wait a minute. And it doesn't say students. I apologize.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next one
Miss
is
But-
go ahead. Sorry.
This is Gabe. I had another question. Which test will the staff be taking? Will it be the rapid test or the long test?
No, sir. The state has 2 that they recommended for us, and many of us right now, we're doing the vault test. That's the one, that's a saliva test that the test kit gets mailed to our house. And then we turn it into UPS and it gets shipped. That's been pretty quick response. If we send it off by Tuesday, we generally have the results by Thursday. So many of us have been using that one. That's the one that the state has recommended, but because there was some dilemmas with it, the state is also allowing us to do the nasal test at Department of Health as well.
Okay.
So those are the 2 main ones that we're using.
Okay, and the nasal test is a longer turnaround, right? By a day or so.
Yeah, in some cases it is, yes. And again, it's kind of all depends on when you go. That's the one thing that we noticed with the vault test. If you mail it off by Tuesday, you get the results by Thursday, by Wednesday, usually by Friday. But if you don't mail it off till Thursday or Friday, you're not going to get the results till the next week. So in the reentry guidance, it says you need to do it early on in the week, because if it's your week, we want the results that week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have to have a plan for contact tracing, and that plan is in the reentry guidance document. It is the plan that we've been using probably since October, and it's been really effective. What happens is the staff member notifies their principal, the principal notifies the nurse, and then our lead point of contact on that is Danielle Aguirre. She and the nurses do the contact tracing, and then Danielle does all the reports that are required for the state. And then once Danielle completes the reports, then she lets Mr. Mendoza know. She does let him know in advance before the report that she was notified of a positive case, and then she also lets him know once the reports are completed. And then on a weekly basis, I do report to the state as well how many people have been surveillance tested and how many people have come out positive. And then the last thing is meals must be provided to students during in-person instruction and remote learning. There is another requirement as well, and that is that schools opening in the hybrid model for the first time must send an email requesting a certification of readiness to open to NMPED and the fire marshal. And that, as I mentioned last week at the meeting, it needs a confirmed date in order for Mr. Mendoza to be able to schedule it. And it's about a 2-week period before they come out and do their certification for readiness. So that would still have to happen.
Along those lines, what do you mean by a confirmed date that we're going to open on, or we're projecting to
Yes, sir.
open?
So, yes, sir. So let's say that we get a confirmed date from the board as far as when we would be opening for hybrid, then Mr. Mendoza can contact them and say, this is a projected date that we're looking at starting for hybrid, so he can go ahead and schedule that visit with the PED and the fire marshal.
So we can't have an inspection by the fire marshal to kind of assess our readiness for that before we get a projected date?
Well, I know Mr. Mendoza contacted them a couple of weeks ago, and they told him that we needed a confirmed date to be able to do that.
Okay.
Mr. Cordero, you all can hear me? Am I on mute?
No,
No,
you're
you
good,
can,
sir.
yes, you are.
I spoke to the gentleman this afternoon, and I informed him that this was on the agenda, and I will contact him tomorrow either way. He says he needs a target date so that he can schedule the fire marshals that'll be available. It could be a local one, or it could be himself, or it can be somebody from anybody from the state. But he says once we have a firm date of when you want to start, or you're going to want reentry, then I have to contact him, and because it takes 2 weeks to 3 weeks to schedule a fire marshal, then it'll take a couple of weeks to fill out the report and give it to the PED, and then they'll send us an official letter saying that we are good to go or not good to go. Okay, so that's in a nutshell. So I need a tentative date, and that would be something the board would have to decide and let me know.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mendoza. So as far as district readiness, school buildings, they need to have the signage, the classrooms need to have the desks 6 feet apart. That is already done. We do have the PPE that we would need to open up. The cleaning supplies, we do have an ample supply of that. We do have cleaning and disinfecting checklists, as you saw in the handbook. A plan for reporting COVID positive cases, we do have that. Reentry plan updated, we do have that as well. And then air purifiers, Mr. Peru can talk more about that if he needs to. I know those did arrive today and will be delivered to the schools. So Mr. Peru, I don't know if you want to say anything else on that?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I did want to say, they came in ahead of schedule. They were supposed to be here February 18th. We got a call this morning at 6 that the truck was looking for our location, and they shipped all of them in except for 5. There was 5 that had to go to the warehouse in Albuquerque, but they shipped the other 120 here to us. We unloaded them, and we will be delivering them tomorrow to all the schools. Visited with the principals. They gave me the classrooms that the teachers that have expressed interest in coming back. We will get those started first. We will connect them, make sure the filters are in correctly, and then we'll start the systems and let them start running. All the maintenance people will be working on that tomorrow, delivering them and getting them to the schools so that we have them there. And if I can mention also with now that I'm mentioning this with the air purifiers, Snell, we completed it on. Everybody was worried about the 6th grade wing. We were able to complete that on the 5th, which was Friday. Brett Off from Coyote Cabling came down. We got everything. He said we are code compliant, ready to move in as soon as the fire marshals look at it. He said that one's ready to go, and he will start work on Bayard and Hurley this coming week and next week, and so they can complete Bayard and Hurley portables. Okay.
Mr.
Thank you, George.
Mr. Peru,
Yes, sir.
on those air purifiers, did you see that thing about that they need to have some kind of infrared light in the room so that they could work better?
No, we didn't see that, Senor. The ones that we ordered are the ones that take, because normally they take 2 filters, from what I understand. The ones we picked up have 4 filters, and we have to clean those once a month. So, but I didn't see anything about the red infrared. And and to be honest with you, I don't know if they have an infrared on them. Once we unpack them tomorrow, I will have more information. But I didn't remember seeing anything on red infrared. But I mean, tomorrow is when we unpack them and we'll start getting them going to see how they are going to operate.
Okay.
We also, I sent all you board members and Mr. Mendoza an update on the HVAC systems and on the upgrades that we did, and those are all ready to go. We completed all of them already also, so those are ready. So now that we put the air purifiers in, everything should work in conjunction with each other. So hopefully everything will come together with that.
Did you put in the original filters that we had talked about prior to the ones that are the portable ones?
I don't understand your question, sir.
You had looked at an inline system that would go with the ventilation system that was approved. It was a lesser quality than what was initially recommended, but then when they reduced the requirements, you found one that seemed to be easy to install and effective for all the classrooms.
Yes, those are on the filters. Yes, we did that on the filters. We were able to go on all of them. We tried to do the MERV 10s on some of them. We noticed that the systems were not operating correctly. The motors were you could tell they were getting heated up. They were just working too hard. So we cut them back to the MERV 9, and the MERV 9s are working on all our systems. They're pulling the air through efficiently, and they're working much better. So with the air purifiers and these, we should be okay. After talking to Amanda Lupardis, she's one of the state people, we told her what we were doing with the MERV 9s and with these air purifiers, and she said that would meet the requirements.
And that would be a pretty quiet version versus having the the in-room filters. And we're going to be using both?
No, the other ones are not the ones on the inline that you're talking about. We just went with the filters that we could go with. We didn't do an air purification in the inline system. These are all portable. The ones we ordered that the state recommended are all portable.
Okay, I'll probably talk to you later about that. But
Okay.
also, I took a trip to Hurley and took a look at the portable. It's nowhere close to ready. I mean, it's not
No,
even.
it's not, and I didn't say it was ready. We were working on we got the skirting done. I talked to the contractor today from the ramps, and he was scheduled to start on Monday of next week on him. He said it would take him 2 weeks to get the ramps done. And once we get the ramps done, everything else should fall into place because the inside is complete. All we got to do is do a little bit of painting from when I went and looked where we cracked, and do some drywall work where we cracked the walls when we leveled the building. And then we should be able to go because the heating there and everything there is operatable already. Also, Mr. Jaime Treviso, our HVAC person, has the systems working there. He's been monitoring them, and they are working efficiently also, the ones in the Hurley portable.
It doesn't look like it was leveled. Also, the fire alarm system is still hanging off the wall. So is any other communication systems.
Yes, sir. That's what I mentioned earlier was that Mr. Brett Off, the guy from Coyote Cabling, he finished off Snell so we can move on Snell for the 6th grade classrooms. And he will not start working on Hurley and Bayard. He's going to do Bayard first, he said, because that was a little easier to tackle. And he'll start working on Bayard this week, and then he'll work on Hurley next week. Because there we have to trench and do everything so we can get the cabling over from the main building to the Hurley portable. And then that's when we will take care of the fire alarms, which is probably not be till next week, is what Mr. Off said. His name is Brett Off from Coyote Cabling.
And the restrooms still don't look like they've been touched either. They're actually preparing a room for isolation in the school.
Correct.
Which is not the best environment because any of the students that are in isolation will have to go through the hallways to go to the bathroom or different contacts. And obviously the best system is to use that portable. But I'm extremely frustrated to see that the only thing that has been addressed so far is the skirting, and the skirting was bolted. I mean, it was 2x4 construction, and it looked like it's something that we could have done ourselves, and that's disappointing. And I really hope that
Okay.
that's ready, and we don't have to do the inside isolation.
Mr. Cordova, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Mr. Cordova, go ahead.
Okay, I think my question is for Mrs. Varela. My question is, okay, so you're presenting the reentry readiness paperwork for us. We need to make a decision as to when we would like to open, and we got to wait on approval from the state. Okay, what happens if, say, one of the schools or two of the schools do not pass inspection?
Then
And
if the other schools do pass, those schools would be able to open for hybrid.
okay, I understand. My question and my concern is those kids that go to that school or those schools, would they be left at home just working on computer classes, or would they be placed at other schools if we have the availability of room? And what would happen with those teachers? Would they be able to help us out where we're short, or would they just be taking care of those kids?
So we would have the option, if we have room someplace else, to go ahead and move them. Mr. Cordova, if I could finish, this might answer a couple of your questions, but if it doesn't, please ask them again in a couple of slides, okay? So we did, last week, I did bring you the numbers. Teachers and principals have surveyed parents. So they have made contact with parents. So right now at the elementary, we have 286 that are interested in hybrid, 131 in remote. Middle school, 188 hybrid, 48 remote. High school, 240 hybrid, 56 remote. At the elementary, we have 9 teachers that are wanting to stay remote, 5 at the middle school, 3 at the high school. I'm not sure if all these teachers have actually already met with Mr. Mendoza and gotten his approval to be able to remain remote. So that may still be something that needs to happen from some of these staff. So some of the challenges, and Mr. Cordova, you did hit on a couple of them. So some of the challenges would be staffing, because based on the numbers that we have here, for example, at the elementary, and we do have it broken down by grade level, how many per grade level, we may have to shuffle around some of our staff in order to be able to meet the needs of all hybrid and all remote students. Based on the numbers that are coming in for hybrid, we may have some classes that have 5 or 6 students per day. And so we can be able to move, as Mr. Cordova alluded to, some of those students into different classrooms so that we can be able to maximize the staff that we have. The other challenge is looking at equitable instructional time for all students that'll be remote and hybrid. And then based on that as well, if we do have to look at shifting some staff to be able to meet the needs of all students, then we may not have the consistency for the students to have the same teachers that they have right now. We may have to make some changes in order to be able to accommodate these both groups of students right here with the 131, especially at the elementary, and then the hybrid, and the same thing for the middle school and high school. So that may mean some shifts have to take place in order to accommodate that. So these are our next steps. The board decision regarding reopening would have to happen with a targeted date, and then Mr. Mendoza would move forward with requesting the site visit. Principals would confirm with staff and parents regarding hybrid or remote option. Administrators may need to revise class lists for both hybrid and remote option, depending again on the numbers for each class and depending on the teachers and staff that want to remain on remote. teachers would need to prepare, including possible reassignments of students and or grade levels if needed. And then we would continue with surveillance testing for staff. So, Mr. Cordova, did that answer your questions?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. And that's all I have.
I have a question,
Mr.
Joyce.
Alonso, I have a question.
Go ahead, Gabe.
So my question was, Alma sent a memo in regards to, you know, how her recommendations on how to provide food for the students. And basically she said the cafeteria is the cleanliest way to do that. And you know, doing it in the classrooms is probably the most unsanitary way. So just kind of curious on what Mr. Mendoza or Joyce, what your thoughts are on that that memo. And
Yeah, in the guidance that we're getting from the PED, in the reentry and the toolkit, Mr. Hogan, they are recommending that students eat in their classrooms because of the cohorts, to keep the students in the cohorts as much as possible. I know that Alma is doing a presentation here this afternoon as well regarding cafeteria.
but that would make the most sense to me, to keep them in their groups, you know, and feed them that way as well. So, okay, thank you.
Yes, and in a conversation with Alma, I have also let her know that we're ordering those, you know, when you go eat at a restaurant and they have the paper placemats, we are going to be ordering those for all the classrooms so that the kids will have a clean placemat every time they have breakfast and then when they have lunch. And it'll also make it more feasible and easier for students to be able to throw their trash. So that'll help somewhat with as far as the sanitation and the, you know, the better environment for kids to eat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had a question, Joyce. Going back to the beginning where you gave us the number of teachers and number of staff that wanted to return and those that didn't.
Yes, sir.
The phone calls and the emails that I'm getting is that they don't want to, and I don't know how that matches with what the numbers that you gave us. The other question is on a lot of this stuff that you're giving us here is what the teachers are going to do, what the staff is going to do. But we passed this on to parents, telling them school's not going to be as it was before. Students are going to have to be separated. They're going to eat in different places. Boyfriend and girlfriend might be in two different cohorts. All of this stuff, have we passed this on to them before we vote on yes, we're going hybrid? Because if we vote that we're going to go hybrid, and then some of these parents or even the kids, once they know what the heck is going to happen to them, they might say, hey, mom and dad, I don't want to go back to school. So I don't know if we pass this information over to parents and showing them that hey, the kids are not going to be there. So, and then also you said that there was a time when they could communicate and be with their friends. Well, what's the difference of them having them on a cohort?
So the reason for the cohorts, Mr. Sepulveda, is to minimize contact with other groups. So the cohort would stay with their class the whole time. So even, for example, in the elementary school, how kids would normally go, like say to the classroom if they have special ed services, we're bringing the teachers to them to minimize the traffic and the kids going and going away from their cohort. So teachers would be coming to them. The other thing is if you looked at the next steps, so originally when many principals did share the information with the teachers, originally we were looking at going with Edgenuity. So that's why in the next steps, it does have principals confirm with staff and parents regarding hybrid and remote, because as principals share all this information with the parents or teachers share this information with the parents, then we may have different numbers right here. We may have different people saying they're going to do hybrid. We may have people changing their mind to go remote. So that would be something that we have already discussed with the principals, and they would like to touch base with parents again to review the information with them before getting a final decision.
Yeah, because I know that here in San Lorenzo, we've got, for example, we've got 7 teachers. 5 of them said they don't want to go back until
Correct.
they get the vaccine. 2 of them said yes, they'd go back. So now we've got a total of 7 teachers and 2 that are going to go. And what's going to happen to those kids that they don't have? I guess I'm in the same boat as Mr. Cordova. Can we borrow teachers from another school, or what's going to happen there?
So yes, sir. Again, if we look at the next steps, we would have principals, again, confirm with parents and teachers. We get those lists finalized. And then, yes, another next step is teacher preparation, which again, as I said earlier, is possible reassignments to different grade levels, to different schools if need be, so that we can be able to meet the needs of the remote students and the hybrid students. So when we look at our numbers now, say for example, I have one classroom that has 10 that want to do hybrid, 9 that want to do remote. So when we look at the hybrid, 5 of them would be in group A, 5 of them would be in group B. So do we have room in that classroom for growth to add other students? Yes, we do. So those are the things that we are going to have to look at. I mean, we have the current numbers from each school by grade level, and we have a rough decision of what it would require to meet the needs of both groups, but we would need to make a final decision based on the number of kids that are going to stay remote and hybrid to meet everybody's needs.
What's going to happen to the, like they say that they got to have 5 to 1. Where is that going to happen? Where are we going to move those kids?
So that would be only for San Lorenzo because they qualify for a small school. So that would be only them. And currently there are 33 students at San Lorenzo who have said they would come hybrid. So we would definitely be able to meet the needs of those students. And granted, based on what you said and the information that we have, it may mean reassignment of teachers to San Lorenzo to be able to meet that. And, you know, it's also possible we may have to do some combining of grades. Again, looking at the numbers for students that are wanting to stay hybrid, where do we have room for growth? What does the next grade up, the next grade down look like? So that we may have to combine some grades to make the hybrid work and still have the staff for the remote.
And at the high school?
So the high school would be a little bit different, because the high school, if you remember a little bit from the last meeting that we had, the high school wants to keep their students. So the high school would teach their classes during the day with the hybrid, and then from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, they would do the remote students. We also have 4 staff members at the high school who will be requesting to stay remote. So those teachers would be touching base during the day with the students who are remote only. So the high school would look a little different than the other schools. But it may also mean, you know, that we may have to even there combine, like maybe there's 3 freshman English classes going on at the same time and we only have 5 kids in a room. We may have to do some combining there as well.
Yeah, the other thing that bothers me is right now the kids are falling in place with the online learning, and the teachers have their schedule for online learning. But what's going to happen when here we go 2 days face to face, 2 days online, and we talked about our failure rate. To me, that's just increasing our chances for more of a failure rate when we keep bouncing them back and forth.
Ms. Varela, Mr. Mendoza, I have a question. I guess I'd like to know, Mr. Mendoza, how do your principals feel? I mean, are they prepared to implement this? Are they ready to go? What feedback have you received from them?
Can I say something here, Dave? To that same accord, would it be possible to have the principals come to our next meeting and give us a rundown on what they have or how they feel, how their parents feel?
Gabe,
I
you
think
got
we have Mr. Corey. I think I thought I saw Miss Montoya. I think we have
But,
I think all the principals
Several of
are online.
well, I'd like to hear very much what Mr. Mendoza has heard, just to kind of demonstrate the collaboration that's going on. And rather than have isolated comments from the principals, that would be reassuring.
It's a good point.
I
I would as
concur
well.
Mr. Guardiano, I concur with you on that, but if we're gonna bring the principals, I prefer to schedule them at the next meeting and give them time to prepare to make sure, and if they need to talk to more staff, that's fine. But I get mixed emotions, because they get mixed with knowing that they have some staff that are not gonna come and so forth, and then the tremendous planning that's gonna take place and reassignment of students to meet their needs. And the thing is that a lot of students are not going to have their regular teacher once we come back because of the needs at San Lorenzo Central or wherever we're at. And Joyce, we talked about it this morning again,
Yes.
we were discussing that situation and we were there. But Gabe, I do want to give the principals a chance, but I'd like to do that in 2 weeks when we have our next meeting and give them plenty of time to do that, okay?
Well, I feel like that would just delay this, any sort of resolution to this decision again, it just bumping it down the road 2 more weeks. I mean, if
Gabe,
they're
it's gonna
on,
happen. Gabe, it's gonna happen with the fire marshal thing. We're looking at a complete month. See, that's what I mean. You can give me a tentative date, but we bring these guys back to see what's happening, okay, or how they feel. In the meantime, I don't want to speak for them. I want them to collaborate and discuss this with the board also on that.
And Gabe, just to concur with Mr. Mendoza, there are mixed emotions. Our principals are willing to do whatever work needs to be done to make it work for both groups. But they do agree that, it'll take some shuffling. It'll take some moving around of staff and students to make this work. But if that's the decision that the board goes, then we can make it happen. It's just gonna mean some shuffling around.
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to hear from them, because to me it does seem, implementing this does seem very clunky. Seems like it would be a challenge. I just, very interested to know how they feel about it.
Okay.
Can that
I
happen,
have a
Mr.
question,
Mendoza?
Joyce.
I'm sorry?
Can that happen?
Yeah, we can have the principals here in 2 weeks. We'll give them plenty of time on that.
Okay.
Somebody else was
I have
trying
a
to say
question. I do. What made you guys decide to go back alphabetically and not by grade level?
because we wanted to keep families together as much as possible. So
Okay,
if you go by grade level, then some families would have kids coming Monday, Tuesday, and the same family would have kids coming Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay, but don't you think about the teachers and why make them teach the same lesson twice instead of just making them teach it once?
But that's going to happen regardless, because you have two different groups of students coming in. So regardless, you have to teach your group A and you have to teach your group B. So no matter how we group them, we still have two groups that we have to teach to.
Okay, but look at it from the high school point of view. Why are you gonna make, say, Miss Ryan teach her honors class 2 separate days, but teach the same lesson?
So Joyce,
That's
can
what I'm
I,
saying,
can I
everybody.
answer Joyce
Go
on
ahead.
that one? So Toya, the reason we had to do it that way was because of the class size limit. Putting you guys 6 feet apart, we can only fit so many students in a classroom. So if Miss Ryan has 30 juniors who are, or 25 juniors in an honors class, we don't have the capability of a classroom to fit those 25 students. And I know Mr. Benfield, his class sizes are pretty big because he has the majority of seniors. And so he wouldn't be able to fit all of you guys in that same classroom.
Right.
6 feet
But
apart.
wouldn't that come to where we utilize the gyms and the auditoriums? When you have those big class sizes?
Not if you're at the same period as another class at that same time. And then the gym would be utilized for the PE classes at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, so the main thing is the same grade level, there's too many students to be able to fit in the classroom. And so I know that Ms. Montoya and Mr. Peña have looked at it different ways. They looked at it by grade level, they looked at it ABC order, and they found the best way to make it work to get that 50% and have them fit and remain socially distanced in each classroom.
And Toya, we tried every different scenario we possibly could to get, to try and do it by grade level.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Gabe again. So along those same lines, it still seems to me like going to this hybrid model would decrease instruction time by half if the teacher's having to do the same lesson twice a week. Just some quick math, quick firefighter math.
And that's one of the things, Gabe, that many of the teachers are feeling, that they would have less quality instructional time with each student because of that, because they would have Monday and Tuesday to teach their students, and then Wednesday, Thursday, they'd have a different group of students.
Okay, thank you.
I had a concern as well regarding this, and one of it was a teacher had an idea that grouping her students by capability would be helpful, because when you combine students that are being very successful and students that need a little bit more attention, if you group those together, the students needing a little bit more attention can get specific focus rather than having the widespread of capability to have to teach to.
Mr. Guadiana, that's called tracking, and we're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to track students that way.
Okay, that clears that one up. Also, how is this going to affect special ed in terms of they've been going through with the training, I mean, their classes on in person and already have something set up? Is this going to affect how they get rescheduled, or will
Yes, they
continue?
would have to reschedule that. And then the other thing that we need to do is also look at meeting the needs, the needs of the special ed students that are remote. And we also have to look at that are remote only, because we do have those students and we have some sped students in that group, but then we also need to meet the needs of the special ed students who are in hybrid. So their schedules would have to also be revised to meet both groups to be able to meet the students' IEPs.
Even though they already have a schedule and that suffices for their in-person instruction?
So remember that right now they're only bringing in some students for in-person. They're not bringing in all students for in-person. So they may have additional students that they need to service when we bring the hybrid students in that may not currently be served in the 5-to-1 ratios. So they're not seeing all their students face-to-face. They're seeing them face-to-face and remotely currently. So we would probably have to reschedule based on when they would be going into the classrooms to service the needs of those students in that classroom, but at the same time, being able to service the needs of their remote students. So they would have to revise their schedules.
And that would be only if there's a change in the enrollment in terms of their participation? Or it's going to be?
That would be dependent on which students are going to be doing hybrid, how many classrooms they have to go into, which students are going to be doing remote, and again, looking at the times that they need to meet based on the IEPs.
Okay.
And we do have, of course, the special ed EAs who can help service that as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Mendoza, you were going to say something?
I'm okay, Mr. Sepulveda. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Okay, that moves us to item C.
Mr. President, if I may, we also had requested that during this presentation, there would be an update on the facility readiness. And other than what Mr. Peru has given us related to HVAC, I kind of wanted to have a full assessment on challenges that we face and our preparedness regarding the physical structures.
Can you fill us in on that, Mr. Mendoza?
Yeah, Mr. Peru, are you on?
Yes, sir. On that, I didn't get to finish earlier. One of the things that I was going to mention also is that Hurley, the heating, one of the things I wanted to bring up was the heating because that was a big item last board meeting. PC Automated was able to come today. They completed the work. We finished filling the water lines in the geothermal system. It took about 6 hours to get it filled. And we finished bleeding them out and getting all the air out of the lines at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So we're ready to monitor it and get it started first thing in the morning. Mr. Jaime Treviso is going to get it going and just make sure that everything runs. We didn't want to start it tonight. That way we could keep an eye on it all day tomorrow as it's starting to heat and starting to function. So that one, like I said, we got all the lines bled and everything, and hopefully that thing will crank up really good tomorrow. And he's going to keep me updated all day. He's going to spend hours out there trying to see and make sure everything's running correctly in that geothermal system. The rest of the schools, like Ms. Varela had said earlier, a lot of them are ready to go. Desks are in place where they need to be. We have everything else that we've needed to do with the PPE. We have the custodians have worked tirelessly just trying to get everything done. They've even done a lot of painting and taking care of the inside of a lot of the buildings like Bayard Elementary. And so we're working on trying to get all those done because everything else physically on the buildings is good to go. I don't know if you have like a particular question, sir, or on the readiness of the physical part of the buildings, or if we have a specific building that we're talking about, or I'll just.
So before Gabe gets on, so we've already done all the installation of the hand sanitizers, the ones that are going to be fixed. All the entrances have been marked and are ready with hand sanitizers and whatever else needs to be put in place. The restrooms as well, having
yes, sir. Everything is marked. We have sanitizers. We have DZ7 in every area. We have done all that. Yes, the nurses took care of that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the hand-free ones are there, so they can
Yes,
just
sir.
walk in, put their hands underneath
So,
it.
Mr. Guadiana, those have not, as I mentioned at the last meeting, there have been issues trying to get them based
No,
on the
because-
number that we've ordered.
No, sir.
So we did submit another order for those. That order has gone in. In the meantime, we will be using the hand sanitizer, the bottles we have. We do have plenty of those to put around throughout the hallways and the entrances to be able to use those.
That was brought up a few months ago, and
And we've ordered them multiple times. And when we've ordered them from different companies, we've been told that our order is going to be filled. And then we wait and we call them to see why our order has never been filled. And it's just based on the numbers that we ordered, they weren't able to take care of it. So then we have to go back and order from somebody else. We have ordered them multiple times.
And you haven't tried different vendors, like, you know,
Yes,
one
sir.
half to this?
Each time we've gone to a different vendor. Yes, sir.
Yes.
And now we're trying another vendor and that order has already gone in.
Okay. So
But like I said, in the meantime, we did order plenty of the little hand sanitizer bottles. So those will be placed strategically throughout the buildings, entrances, hallways.
this is one of the things that when I ask for reports, I hope that those kind of things are brought up, and then we get that reassurance that things are in process. But when it's overlooked and somebody has to ask a question and then they say, okay, we're not meeting this requirement yet, but that kind of makes it problematic for me in terms of
Right.
getting
And Mr.
full
Guadiana,
assurances.
I did last week's board meeting, I did mention the issue with the hand sanitizer dispensers.
Yeah, and to that degree, it was not easy to comprehend whether that meant all schools, some schools, different areas. So, but and certainly the request for this presentation right now was to address the outstanding issues, and it didn't go that far.
Right.
And
But because we do have plenty of hand sanitizer bottles to use, it really isn't an issue because we do have enough to cover what we need.
it is an issue in terms of the volumes of people coming in at the beginning of school and going out, to have hand sanitizer bottles be touched by every single person going in, I think is an issue.
Mr. Cordova, you had a question?
Yes, I do, but Gabe had one. I yield to Gabe and then I'll ask mine. Go ahead, Gabe.
Okay, thank you. So my question was on the protective shields at the teachers' desks, what the status of those are. Last time we had talked about getting a quote from from Wysong Glass. So what's the status on that?
So we have gone a different route and we've already ordered the shields. We've ordered shields for the secretary's office, the principal's office, the librarian's office, and one for every classroom.
Okay, and when are we expecting those to arrive?
Within
And
2
be
weeks.
installed? Okay.
We were told within 2 weeks. And there's really not going to be any installation, Gabe, because they kind of have like feet and suction cups on them. So it's not going to, once we get them and we deliver them, they can immediately be put up. So there won't be any installation that has to really take place for that.
Okay, thank you.
Cordova?
My president is for you, Mr. President. On item A, are we still on it? And wasn't that an action item? Under review of reentry readiness?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes, I'm sorry. Because I still have a question on that too. I guess this one is for Ms. Montoya. How are we looking at keeping the students, especially at the high school, social distance? And how are we going to move them through the hallway so that they don't intermingle all of them in the hallway at one time? And how are we going to work especially the intersection there where the halls meet? Is the floor marked so that they can stay 6 feet away and all of that? Is that all done?
Yeah, the floor is all marked. We have all the passing periods staggered. So the freshmen would go first, then the sophomores, then the juniors, then the seniors. So each of them kind of have their own little passing period. And we would need the help of the teachers and everyone else just to make sure we are in the halls telling them to get to from point A to point B.
Okay, so they're all gonna be kind of mingling together when they walk down through the hall.
What do you mean?
Well, you open the door for the senior, for the, say, the freshmen to go from say, your English class on one end of the hall to your science class on the other end, and how are they gonna go through there? Are they all going together one way, and some coming, some
Yeah, so the halls are marked up and up and
going?
down,
How,
and we have each of the doors marked enter and exit, so they're coming in one door, out the other door. And then the passing periods, like I said, and it's going to be a hit and miss at the beginning. Right now we allowed 2 minutes, and we may have to extend that. So everything will be off of the intercom, not by the bell. So we'd have freshmen first. Once we get them into the class, then we'd make the announcement for the sophomores and then so forth. It's going to be a challenge.
okay.
And the middle school does have the same thing. They have staggered passing periods as well.
Mr. President, I got a question.
All right. Go ahead, Gay. Or Mr.
Right.
Gomez, I'm sorry.
Ms. Varela, this might be a question to you, Mr. Mendoza. Thank you, first of all, for the presentation that you've given. With everything entitled with what you've said in regards to the reentry and also our buildings and stuff, is our district ready for our kids to open up our school districts into a hybrid mode?
So Mr. Gomez, I would have to answer that by saying right now, today, we are 90% ready because we do have to go back, as I said, on the next steps. We have to go back again and finalize our remote numbers, our hybrid numbers, and reshuffle staff as needed to be able to accommodate all students.
Thank you. And also, so we're 90% ready, and this is an action item. So obviously the board's going to be voting on this today. If we vote for it to move forward with it, with the fire marshal's inspection and stuff, will we be prepared?
Yes, sir, because the fire marshal's visit is about 2 weeks out. We probably just need we would need about a week to get the schedules and the students straightened out and which teachers are going to be where. So while we're waiting for the fire marshal inspection, we would be able to handle that and have that ready.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr.
Anything else?
No, I'm ready to make a recommendation for the board to consider.
Go ahead, Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. Sepulveda. With the principals not having expressed their feelings to the board, I recommend that we table this action item for the next board meeting to allow the principals to answer questions that you all may have, okay? That's my recommendation at this point.
Here's the recommendation. Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a motion? Recommendation fails due to lack of motion. Move on to item C.
It's item B, Mr. Sepulveda.
Item B, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Mr. Sepulveda, wouldn't you still have to vote on it? You have an action item. The only action was to table it. And it didn't
Yeah,
pass.
but-
Wouldn't we
but
still
it-
have to
It
When we still
failed due to
have-
lack of a motion.
What
Nobody made a
failed
mo, nobody
what
made a
failed
motion.
was to table it. But about any other action,
Well, it failed because lack of motion. if somebody would have made a motion and a second, then we would have voted to table. But right now it failed due to lack of motion, so it didn't go neither way.
I would agree with Frank in the sense that there wasn't a motion made. And in terms of whether to move forward with the ready with the
I guess my question is, what are we voting on? The recommendation was to table. So what are we voting on if there was no motion to continue?
But that's I think what we have to focus on, is saying there was no motion, not so much for the tabling of the motion. It was to say there is no recommendation at this point.
Yeah, there's no recommendation.
The motion that you were asking for was to table it. Nobody motioned anything to table it, so it stayed on. And you still have an action item that we haven't taken action on it, but I'm with you, whatever you decide.
Any other comments on it?
So Gomez, I agree with Mr. Cordova and Mr. Guadiana. The motion that was made was to table, which there was not. It died due to lack of motion. But on the agenda, it is to review a status of school entry, the readiness, and not to be tabled. I would feel that that's what the motion would be, to be put on the table.
And this is Gabe. I respect Mr. Mendoza that you are saying we ought to wait to hear what the principals have to say, but the principals are on. I'd like to hear what they have to say now. I think that that we should look at a different recommendation. I'm not the best at Robert's Rules of Order, but I think we ought to look at a different recommendation and vote on that.
Well, the thing on item B, if you look at it the way it's worded, review on status of reentry. It does not say to vote on the reentry. Anyway.
And didn't we also make it not an action item at the beginning of the meeting?
No, we voted on item B, not be an action item.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think that's the most important action item that our school is facing, and I think we shouldn't. It seems like a technicality, a way just to not vote on that is what I'm getting at. I feel like we're trying to avoid that decision.
And it does have the asterisk, so that does mean that it is an action item then. And since we didn't remove it. Okay.
I don't know which principals are out there. I can't see any of them right now, but if any of them want to speak up right now, they can. I don't hear nothing. So,
Mr. President, I'll gladly answer any questions that you guys have.
go ahead, Mr. Corey. Any questions for Mr. Corey?
Sure, Mr. Corey, this is Gabe. I would just like to know what your comfort level is in implementing the hybrid model as proposed.
So it kind of puts us in a very unique situation because we have teachers on both sides of the fence. And we have some teachers that are, of course, willing to come back whenever, and we have some teachers that don't feel comfortable in doing that and would like to have a vaccine before they come back teaching students live. So, for me, I just stick to facts. I know how many students I have. I know how many are wanting to go on the hybrid model. I know how many want to go remote, and I know how many teachers. So just for me, logistically, I do not have enough teachers to cover the hybrid model at San Lorenzo. So that's just, I'm speaking for San Lorenzo. So for me to continue, the teachers that do teach at San Lorenzo that want to stay remote, there probably would be then moved to online learning only for kids that want to choose that. And then I would need extra teachers from other schools to come out. I would say the bigger question we have is do we have a school that is able to run the hybrid model and have extra teachers to be able to loan to other schools that don't? So I think that's where hearing from principals would I agree with you, be very beneficial, because I have my numbers right here, and I think so I have pre-K, K1, and then I have a combined 2-3 class and a combined 4-5 class. So those 5 teachers teach my pre-K through 5th. 2 of those teachers are comfortable coming back and ready to go. 3 of those teachers are not. They are asking to be vaccinated before they come back and teach live in front of kids. And I have other teachers in the building, like interventionists and things like that, but it gets kind of in a financial problem as far as with grant money, and it's a budgetary problem. So technically, that's my numbers, that's what I have. And so if we said we're starting 2 weeks from now, I have a problem, and it's a staffing problem. Is building ready to go? Building's ready to go. Are we, you know, like if you said we're going in 2 weeks, we're there, we're ready. It's just how many extra teachers do we have in our district that we are highly qualified to provide educations at the right levels?
Is the 2-week timeline actually a possibility? It's 2 weeks to get the inspector to come out to make the appointment. Then is it another 2 weeks to get approval? What would be the timeline if we were to say something about starting now?
I can only speak for San Lorenzo and my building and facilities.
No, I know that was a question
Yeah.
more for Mr. Mendoza or Joyce. Sorry about that.
No problem.
If I may, Mr. Guardiana, yes, I need 2 weeks window they're asking for from the PED. And then it'll be 2 weeks after that before they can issue us guaranteed to start. Okay, so I'm looking at a month. Hopefully it won't be that long if we were to go that route. But that's my understanding. And we were texting today, emailing each other with that. So he wants an answer for me to call him tomorrow so that he can start that process going.
So, Mr. Corey, does a month time frame give you a little bit more of a cushion? And the other part, actually, to Mr. Mendoza is, have we heard anything on the availability of the vaccine for the teachers?
Sandra, can you speak to what we discussed today?
Well, Maureen was helping me on this. We got some vaccines for our teachers. The first round will be given to us on Wednesday.
Cool.
So that has helped us, but we're in the same boat as Mr. Corey is. Some of them want to come back. Some of them don't want to come back till they're vaccinated. It's a double-edged sword. The teachers realize that the students need to be in class, but they're worried about their health as well. So it's a guessing game right now. They realize the students need their help. They also realize doing the remote and the in-person learning is going to be a struggle. There's just not enough time in a day to reach all the kids we need to reach and give them the time that they deserve. Maureen, do you want to add on to that?
Yes, I would like to. So following the timeline, by the time that we are most likely able to come back into the schools, the high school teachers should be fully vaccinated, and anybody that wanted to be vaccinated should have their second shot by then. In addition, I just want to point out that I know that there's definitely some concerns and it's going to be challenging, absolutely. However, I think it's important to give the parents a choice if they want their kids to stay remote or they want their kids to go hybrid. I think that's very important to a lot of parents in our district, that they have that choice. And I think, the majority of the high school teachers did want to be vaccinated before they came back, but they were also willing to come back before. But like I said, they should be vaccinated within that timeline now. So at the high school level, that shouldn't necessarily be a concern.
What about the other schools getting the vaccine, the teachers and staff?
We will continue to work on that. They were able to get us a chunk of them, and it was able to go to the high school. And we will work with the other schools and try to make sure that we can help them try to secure theirs as well. They can't vaccinate all of our teachers at once. That's just not something the county can handle. And so we're going to go in stages, and we were lucky enough to be able to make contact with people that could help us. And so, barring any disasters, we will absolutely help the other schools try to navigate that. I'm not 100% sure it will work, but we will certainly give it a shot.
One of the things that we need to make sure that they do is that they register to get the vaccine, because that's something that they're going to want is the registration of those folks that want it. And I'll tell you right now that I hope that they can move the teachers, and I think this is something the governor should have done, was put the teachers up front to get the vaccine when she said that open by the 8th. But I registered to get the vaccine December 22nd of last year, and I barely got it last Tuesday. So I just hope that they need to register, because it's something they're going to have to do.
It seems that the vaccination rollout seems to be ramping up some. I had heard a lot of people say, I've been registered for a really long time, and many of those people were able to get their vaccinations last week. So I'm hoping that it's ramping up. But like I said, my biggest feeling is I just think we need to give the parents a choice. And I realize that, it is going to be challenging, but our students are worth facing that challenge if that's what's best for them. And by offering both options, I think we open it up to both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, I agree with you, Maureen, and we do need to have the parents, give the parents a choice. And we need to explain the situation where we're at, that it's not going to be a school as usual. That is the main thing.
Yes, sir.
So to that, didn't we do a parent survey, and didn't we get the results from that? And there was an overwhelming response from the parents that they wanted to enter into hybrid?
Yes, that's correct.
But I don't think, Gabe, that the situation was they didn't explain to them that it was not school as usual. I think that most of those parents that said yes, if you ask them again, that they think school's going to be at school as usual, which it's not.
I would argue that parents know that it's going to be different. We're in a national pandemic, so I think there's an understanding that parents know that things aren't going to be the same. There's going to be a lot of, safety measures put in place that their students are going to have to deal with, and I would think that they're well aware of that.
Mr. Holguin, can I add, I know Mr. Gerhardt has done a lot of student surveys, and one of the biggest concerns that he has brought in is that the students are worried more about other students not following the rules and not knowing where the other students have been. And so that's one of the biggest concerns that our students, or some of the students, I shouldn't even say a lot, but some of the students he has visited with, is how can I trust a fellow classmate when I know they've been out at the lake, or I know they're doing this. So I think the students are more worried about other students and what they're doing.
And the venue for that is they have the choice whether to stay remote or come back in person. And certainly if that's a feeling that would push me to move, that, okay, I'm going to stay remote. I really can't assure my safety. And I think that is an option that we're making very clear is available. There is a risk in coming back, no doubt about it, to teachers, to family members, to extended family. And that's a decision that parents need to make. But I think having those that are capable of or comfortable coming back, I think the opportunity to do in-person learning is a great motivator. Personally, I look at sending my kids back if that's the case, and they're willing to do that. Actually, my daughter's not quite convinced yet, but they'll be a part of that decision, and every family will have that option.
Okay. Anything else?
There still are other principals that are talking about the readiness of their schools, and I see some of them on there, including Sandra. How do you think about the readiness of your school?
We're about 85 to 95% ready. We have what we need. We're just finalizing a couple of things. Another thing I wanted to bring up was another big concern of ours is, and we have to get the parents to understand, is once they choose, we don't want them flip-flopping. So we don't want them to choose hybrid and then go back to remote and then come back to hybrid. We'd like for them to choose one and stick with it because it's going to affect our numbers in both programs. But
And I think that is what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to open up, if we open up, and in 2 weeks or 3 days or something like that, we're going to have somebody test positive. Now we got to close schools down again, and here we go like a yo-yo, up and down, and then what is that going to do to our kids that are already set in doing going online to do their classwork, or vice versa. So there again, we talk about failure rate. You moving them back and forth. It's just going to increase that. So I see Laverne on there.
Hello, Mr. President, Board. I'm going to piggyback on what Michael said. I have staff members that are on both sides of the fence. I do have 8. All my teachers said that they would come back if they needed to, but I have 8 that said that they strongly wanted to have the vaccine before they came back. But I have some teachers that kind of feel like, we do need to kind of face this challenge of coming back and work out the kinks because we don't know what it's going to look like in the fall. We need to be prepared and start seeing our students. I do know that it's a little bit of anxiety. I think what we need to do first, and I know Ms. Varela talked about this, was we need to touch base with our parents again. When they did that online survey, it was under the assumption that we were doing edgenuity. And so going back to talk to our parents and say it'll be one of our teachers from the district, and but it won't be your child's teacher. I know there's anxieties about teachers being moved around, at this point in the year, being displaced, and other students being, with another teacher, and what happens with SAT, what happens with maybe possible retentions, things like that have come up. What is the communication going to be like with that new teacher when they were with this teacher for the whole year? So there's a lot of things that we need to think about in terms of what's best for the kids. So like Michael said, it's on both sides. I think we need more information to get out to the parents so that they could really make that decision what they really want for their child based on this new information of it being another teacher that will be with them. As far as our building, I just keep praying that it will be done in time, because I know if we do come back, I know parents will be sad if we can't come back into our building when everyone else in the district will be able to go to school for whenever it begins. Do you have any other questions? Trying to think of anything else.
Can you itemize some of the things you're worried about in terms of the facility being ready?
Our heat being ready, of our portables. That's something that we were really hoping for, was that we would have that as our isolation room. As you did say, when if kids are in the isolation room, they do have to leave our room to go down the hall, and we're going to have to give up a staff bathroom for those kids in isolation to use. And so that's something that was, disappointing. And I think everything else is just about ready. We have been without our custodian, and we have Miss Ruby Miscus, who's jumped in and done an amazing job. So she's gotten our hand sanitizers put up in our classrooms near the entrance. Danielle has worked really hard with all of our signage everywhere. So, we've done our little practice runs with how we're going to do temperature checks and things like that. I know that there are, depending on, I guess, what the board was going to decide, there was a couple teachers that were thinking of maybe doing remote, just because they will have infants that have heart problems that they don't want to jeopardize, and so they're really thinking about that. So I think a lot of teachers' decision is going to be based. There may be more teachers that come out based on what the board decides on the direction for our district. So if you say we're going to go hybrid, we'll be ready. We'll have everything in place that we need to, pending our building. That that's kind of where we are. It's a hard, I know this is a super hard time, and I don't think there's a right answer to any of this. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Martinez. I'm sorry I called you Laverne a minute ago. I've known her for a long time.
That's okay.
Any other principal out there?
Mr. Diaz is there.
Go ahead, Mr.
Hello, good evening. Seems like we talk a lot, guys, but I hope everybody's having a good evening. I'm going to share the same sentiments, as Ms. Martinez and Mr. Corey. And I just want to say that, I want to preface by saying that, Mr. Mendoza and Ms. Varela and Dr. Carrillo have done a great job of creating plans and adjusting to plans. And we know that there's all kinds of plans out there that we all have. So I just want to say that as far as a building is concerned, as far as do we have the right plans in place, and can we move forward with plans? Of course, I think we're in the place where we are ready to go in that aspect, but we have the human aspect of it as well, right? We have teachers that, would definitely prefer to come back once they have been vaccinated. We have those teachers, again, that would be okay coming back without it. So there's still that unanswered part of it. I know that my teachers would have a hard time being reassigned. That's probably this late in the year. Those are concerns that they would have, having new students. There's a few things that are unanswered, but I would say if we had to start within the next month or whenever that was, as far as the building and plans are concerned, we would be good to go then.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Diaz?
I've got a question.
Did the water damage that occurred
So, Mr. Wellington, to answer your question, that is still a little bit under construction. They've been working on it, but I think we could probably get that within a month.
Okay.
Mr. Cordova.
Yes. Okay, I've got a question and a comment, probably for Mrs. Varela and all the principals. It's kind of my concern, and I see that very few of the parents responded to the survey a very, very small percentage of them. And that's the comment, but the question is, for coming from the principals and the teachers, have these parents, a lot of these parents been contacted, and maybe they have told you people more than what they just didn't want to answer the survey, or I mean, this is a real small percentage for a small district.
Mr. Cordova, so we've done two things. So the first numbers that I gave you all even last week of how many kids wanted to remain on remote or hybrid, those numbers were based on teachers contacting parents and then teachers visiting with their principals in regards to that. And in some cases, principals reaching out to parents as well. And yes, I do agree with you. The survey that went out to parents last week of the data that I showed you, it was a sample of 245 responses. We do have 1,058 students enrolled in our district, and granted, many of these parents may have more than one kid in our schools, but it was a small representation of our parents. So we've done a couple of different things to reach out to them.
Mr. Varela, thank you. But my concern and where I'm coming from is it was reported at our last board meeting that a lot of the teachers, or some of the teachers, were asking the kids themselves which way they wanted to go. And my question is, have the parents been contacted, and not just the kids? Because it's up to the parents, not up to the kids.
Right. And I will go ahead and let Mr. Avalos address that. I know he was on just a little bit ago.
Good afternoon. Good evening, everybody. Mr. President, members of the board,
Good evening.
Superintendent Mendoza, and everybody in attendance. I think that that's a great question now, because upper administration has now went on and added another survey into the mix here. Obviously, the question was, I thought I had answered it last week about whether or not, why we did indeed put the questionnaire out to the kids, being, like I said, a Google school. We put a survey out. Obviously, I hope that did generate some discussion in those homes. And then when the second survey went out, we got more of a firm answer as far as another data point in order for us to make some decisions. But since then, we are continuing to actually call every home. And unfortunately, as we're seeing in remote learning, we have a lot of kids that, parents just don't respond to us. Okay, regardless, they're not coming in and not doing their lessons. We try to get a hold of them. We try to email them. And, unfortunately, as good as the survey is going to be, we're still not going to reach some of the kids, okay, or some of the parents in order to make that decision. So I think, when you look at the pooling of our students and our most importantly, our parents, we're building a picture on the data that we're receiving. Okay. And I know a while ago, Sandra was talking about the fact that some kids are not going to come, and then parents are going to make a decision and change it based on, well, the hybrid's not for me, we need to go back to remote. I think that's going to happen automatically, regardless of how good of a plan or what we have in place. We're still going to have people that are going to go both directions, because even those kids that are on remote, we're going to have some of those kids come back and say, my friends are all back at school. We want to go back to school now, Mom. And we're going to have some of those going across both ways. And we as schools are going to have to make that adjustment and be able to either add them or put them in one program or the other. And I think that's a reality that we're going to have to face. Okay. As far as data, we're still picking that up right now. This week, we're still working on trying to get a hold of those last few parents in some way to be able to give us an accurate estimation of how many kids we're going to have either in the remote model or in the hybrid model. So we're working on that. We continue to work on that.
Mr. Avalos,
yes.
I thank you for your comments, and I thank you for the work that you have done.
Yes.
And yes, I got at the last board meeting that you and its personnel were doing what they were doing. My question primarily was that I hadn't heard from the other principals what they have done in their schools as far as reaching parents. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then again, it's just, we're trying to come up with some good numbers here. Okay. And I'm the type of person that's going to throw something out there to see, just to get some more input, and we'll take that input, and then we will build off of whatever we're getting in order to make a better decision. Okay. While I'm on, let's talk about the readiness of our school, if you don't mind. Again, I think the plan in play, of course, is making sure that we get the number one issue is getting that fire marshal in to come and do an inspection. And then, weeping. And I know sometimes there's frustration on here that this hasn't got done or this hasn't got done. But I think, we are continually trying to make those, we're adapting, we're adjusting, we're trying to get ready as best as possible. Okay. Our teachers, of course, there's still a number of teachers at our school that are very concerned about the fact of reentry without the vaccine. That's a huge issue. And I want to add on this, okay? I had a parent in that had a direct connection in with one of the health offices here, and they said, hey, sometimes we have extra vaccines. So my first word was, hey, you know what? When you have those extra vaccines, please get a hold of me so I can get my staff lined out and let's get it going, okay? Is that kind of selfish in a way for our school district to be doing that? Then to find out Sandra and them are working on the same. See, we're all scrambling to try to get our people eligible, which in this case is vaccine, in order to get in here and be able to open up our schools. But I really think that we need to come up with a very strong effort, and maybe as a school district somehow go sit in or go talk to them. I don't even know if that's possible, to get our whole the whole district considered at once. Not just Cobre's, they're trying to take care of theirs. I'm trying to take care of mine, but just so that we can, get our people ready to go. I think that's a huge factor. And it's gonna change a lot of minds of our staff, and give them a little bit of security in the sense of, hey, let's bring them on. Okay. Our building can be ready in the amount of time that we're given, no question, and that includes even our schedules and everything that we need to do. Our staff, we've already been speaking about the fact that they may need to either teach remote or change grade levels or whatever they have to do in order to work it out. We just need to be given the go ahead to do that. And along those lines, and please forgive me for saying this, I really think just because the kids that are listening now, the parents that are listening now, they're on a roller coaster. When the governor announced and kind of dropped that bomb on us on February 9th, everything was going to open. We were having parents calling us, what time does my kid need to be there? They were ready. There was a lot of them that were ready to go. And I think that it's just, we are continuing to give them hope and the fact that, yeah, it's coming, it's almost here. And those kids that are falling off the table, and, when I'm talking to them and say, hey, hang in there, man, we're getting nearer and nearer for school to open, and you got to get ready to go, and you got to wake up at 8 o'clock and start getting disciplined when school starts going again, so it's a roller coaster. And I really believe that at some point when the decision is made, and that way, all the people in this district are putting their effort in to try to get this ready to roll for the hybrid. And all we need is the word, and that way the kids also can have some hope and get moving. And, we're going to make the best of the situation. Another thing I got to mention, and I'll end on this, is that my daughter attends Silver schools. When hybrid opened up, she started doing very well here. I also want to question whether or not we have reached out to neighboring districts who are having success to see maybe what are some of the pros and the cons in order that what is being successful in their districts, and something that we can adapt, because it's happening all around us. Different school districts are in hybrid and they're having success with it. But yet, obviously the information of them getting sick in those districts is not always made public, but I'm curious, it's kind of public record, and to see how much of an infection rate is going on in these schools that are hybrid, and if they're having success, keeping that down, and also seeing their kids one-on-one. I think that's very important. If anybody has any questions, please.
I have a couple of questions, but one is that I agree with your assessment in terms of having looked at very close. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to go to Silver to take a look at what's working there. And they've been at this for a little while already. But that's evidently, I was told that wasn't an intended effort that was going to happen. And I'm disappointed with that. But I'm also disappointed with, right now, as we're talking, it seems like each individual school, and with the lead of the high school, and I appreciate their progress in it, are trying to get the vaccines. And I really think this should be an effort that's coordinated with administration so that not each individual school, we have 5 different schools trying to do the one thing that should be coordinated and should be the highest priority of our district.
So, Mr. Guadiana, if I could address that, I am part of a committee that attends meetings every single Monday with multiple entities, including the Department of Health. I have been advocating for weeks with that committee for our staff to get vaccinated. That's one meeting I never miss because I know that the topic of that conversation is mainly around vaccines. So I have attended that for multiple weeks, and I do continue to push to get our staff vaccinated. As far as the other schools, there are regular meetings also with the superintendents of all school districts that are held regularly. So we do get reports, we do get information, and that information regarding how their schools are doing, that is shared on a weekly basis as well.
And to add to that with Joyce, I know that right now the nurse in Silver is working on a thing to try to get their staff vaccinated. I passed that on to Mr. Mendoza, and he was going to get with our nurse, head nurse, to meet with them and see if maybe both schools can get a coordinated effort and go to the health department to get our vaccine.
So, Mr. Sepulveda, we did jump on that when we got the information. Our school nurse did contact Silver. What they're actually doing is creating a list of staff members who have registered for the vaccine. So we did jump on that. We did try to collaborate with them, but that's what they're doing. They're just getting a list together of the staff members who have registered for the vaccine, similar to what Sandra's doing to try to push those forward.
Yeah, and that's the thing that they have to be registered, and that's why I said a while ago, all those teachers that want the vaccine, they need to register in order to get it.
Understood, but it seems like the high school has had better success in doing that, and that could be number one, replicated or at least coordinated with all the schools, right, instead of having each one individually try to go the route that they've gone.
And Mr. Guadiana, it's based on different connections that different people have.
Isn't that wonderful? And
it is, absolutely, and we are very happy for that.
Advantage of that. Shouldn't we be taking advantage of that?
And that's exactly why Ms. Montoya and Maureen said that as soon as we get the high school done, if that works successfully, we will continue to work with the schools. We don't want a replication of what happened in Albuquerque, where we announce it, all our teachers get excited about it, and then it's put to stop. So we wanted to make sure that the high school was successful before we move forward in trying to use those same connections to get other staff vaccinated as well.
That's different than what you just said. Just trying to use those same connections, and that's what I was trying to get at. So thank you.
Mr. Sepulveda, at this time, Susan, you're on? I thought I saw your name.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. President, board members, and Superintendent Mendoza. So really all I have to say, I can concur with the elementary principals, but at this point, there's really no right answer here. We just need to make a decision and move forward with it, and we will make it the right decision. I think we've had these parents, these teachers, these students on a roller coaster for the last couple of weeks, and I just want to make a decision. Our school is ready to go. Yes, I am concerned about the students being displaced to different teachers. I'm very concerned about that. But guess what? We will make it happen. So hopefully tonight we can make a decision and we can move forward. And again, we are team players at Bayard, and we will do what it takes to do what we need to do, whether it's stay remote or whether it's coming back hybrid. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanna say one thing that we haven't talked about in talking about reopening schools. One of the things to keep in mind is I don't know what this new strand of virus is going to do to our younger kids. Right now, the way it's been going, the COVID-19, it has affected, but it hasn't affected the younger generation as much as it has from 16 years up, that old. But what is this new strand going to do to us? They say it's more contagious than this one. So I don't know where that's going to take us. Those are some of the things that we need to remember. We are back in red in the county. We had 19 new cases yesterday. So, and wait till about Wednesday or Thursday, and those cases are going to probably pop up more after last Sunday's Super Bowl game. So those are just some of the things. And what I don't want our school to do is to go up and down like a yo-yo. If we go one way, we stay that way. The other thing that we need to do is make sure that those people are self-policing themselves. Come and tell us, hey, I went out of state yesterday. Or hey, a member of my family tested positive. Some of those things we have to self-police ourselves. The other thing to remember, if we vote that we're going to go hybrid, what is the first thing that's going to happen? Parents are going to run to El Paso, to Las Cruces, to Tucson to buy clothes for their kids. So it's going to affect them in that way too. They're going to be out of town. They're going to go to out of state. So those are some of the other things that we need to consider. What's going to happen if we do vote that way?
Mr. President, can I answer Mr. Cordova's question? So on contacting parents, I've had my 3 secretaries contact all the parents. Some of them answered, some of them didn't. Parents, every time they've been contacted, have changed their mind. So one time we'd contact them, they'd say they're staying remote. The other time they'd say no, they're coming hybrid. So the parents are flip-flopping as well as our secretaries are contacting them. I also just found out another thing we need to keep into consideration is a student tested positive today at Stout. And so they had, I guess they rotate during 6th grade to different teachers. So now they're having to quarantine all those students within those 6th grade classes that one student was in. So, I mean, it's gonna go both ways. But we have contacted parents. We've asked them. I get stopped whenever I go to Albertsons or Walmart. So I try to do the online pickup. They want to go back, then they don't. They want to, then they don't. It just really depends on the day and the situation. And then I know Mr. Pena had a question.
Like right there, right now, that you say that kid contacted and trying to work with all those 6th graders he had contact with, what's happening with all the teachers that he had contact with. So those are some of the things we're going to have to watch. Mr. Guadiana, you had a question?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Sorry, I had my hand raised. I don't know. Sorry about that.
Anything else?
I think Mr. Pena raised his hand, had a comment or a question.
I didn't see him. I'm sorry. I still don't see him. Mr. Pena, you there?
Yes, sir, I am. I just want to reiterate what Mrs. Montoya is saying, and I agree, with what Mr. Avalos and what Mr. Diaz had said. When we're looking at the survey and we're looking at the total numbers, when we're looking at the thousands of students that we have or the few thousand and few that we have, and you're getting 200 surveys, Well, that's probably less than, a few percentage points. So when you cut those in half, you actually have a respondent of maybe 100 students. So, that's not going to be indicative. And one of the things that we have to realize is that the ones that are filling out the surveys are the ones that are going to probably be more vocal, while the other ones are waiting to see what it is that the district is going to do. They want their kids to be safe. They want their teachers to be safe. And again, like Mrs. Montoya said, they want the teachers to have the vaccines. The teachers want to have the vaccines. In contacting a lot of the parents and parents contacting me, one of the things that's very common is that some parents are saying, if we're not happy with the way things are going, we are going to keep our students out of school. So regardless of whether they choose hybrid, if they're not content with the way things are going in the school, and if there's any infection of any kind, their plan is to just not send their kid to school. And they're basically saying, really, that's for the safety of my own student. So even on top of saying, we have parents that are going to go hybrid or parents that are going to go remote, we have the factor too that some are going to sit down and say, you know what, I'm not going to send my student to school, even though they only go 2 days. I may sit down and say, I send them 1 day and that should be enough. And then from there on, I'm going to keep them safe for the rest of the week. So that's also another factor that hasn't really been taken into consideration. Parents are trying to look at everything and evaluate for their own safety and the safety of their kids. So even though they may commit or say one thing, they're not 100% committing to anything. Some are and some aren't. So it's just dependent. And I also do want to make a comment on the work that Mrs. Peru and Mrs. Montoya have done at the high school. They've done an excellent job of trying to build schedules. And I'm sure all the principals have done this. And Mrs. Barella and Dr. Carrillo have done so as well. They've worked diligently to make sure that everything on paper looks as clear and concise as possible. But we all know in theory, once we get into that situation, theory doesn't always work. So there are going to be situations and there are going to be circumstances that are going to cause change. And some of that change may not always be as beneficial as what we hope. So that's one of another concern that we have is, in theory, some things may also change. When we're looking at the infection rate, and just like Mr. Sepulveda said about new strains, well, that's something that we have to, take into consideration all the time. Those things are going to change, and they don't give us a warning as to when they're going to change. They just change on their own. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a little bit of a bigger picture of some of the thoughts that some of the parents actually have, and some of the concerns that maybe aren't always taken into consideration.
Thank you. And that's one of the things that the governor said when she said to open on the 8th, that she did say is that we have to take into consideration the safety of our teachers and our students. And so that is something that we need to take care of. And even in our policy is that we need to provide a safe work environment for all our employees. Mr. Mendoza. Or any other questions? I'm sorry. Any other questions? Comments?
I'm sorry, Mr. Sepulveda.
Go ahead, Mr.
I just wanted to add one more thing. And while I greatly appreciate the efforts of Mrs. Peru and Mrs. Montoya, and of course, any other principals or anybody in administration that's working with the Department of Health, we have to stop and think that working on getting the vaccine for the teachers is what they're trying to do. But when we're trying to look at our general public, they're also trying to do the same thing. And it isn't always beneficial to bypass the line. I know that's a big concern. I know that's something that is so important to get our teachers back into school, to get our kids back into school. But there's also a lot of elderly people that are being pushed back. And one of the things that we have to realize too, that by doing that as well, what we're doing is we're putting whoever that contact or that person or whoever that is within that department under a tremendous amount of pressure. People in the medical field have already been pressured to take care of everyone, to work in an environment that is possibly unsafe. And then now they're being pressured to give a vaccine. So I appreciate the efforts, and I can only say thank you to what they're doing. But at the same time, we also have to kind of ease up on them a little bit as well.
You're correct. Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on. Going back to what Mr. Cordova told me a while ago on point of order on the vote that on item A. I don't want to call her secretary because she'll get mad at me, but she brought me the thing, she looked it up there a minute ago, and we do have to vote on item A. Do you have a recommendation on it, Mr. Mendoza?
You're muted, Mr. Mendoza.
I had a recommendation to begin with, and we've let all the principals talk. But the one thing that bothers me the most is I have to call the Ped Department tomorrow and talk to the fire marshal's representatives, and I need a date. Now, something to remember about, this was in the fall, the board voted to go remote till March 11th. That's still there that you've done. It was an official vote. And we said we go through the third quarter, but then we come back and rethink things. But what I really need is for the board to consider a vote that gives me a temporary date where I think when Mr. Guardiana or somebody asked me, it's actually a total of 2 weeks. 1 week before, and then it's actually 4 weeks. It's actually a month before we can realize anything, okay? And I'm not sure if they'll let us open individual schools or not, but I can ask that question, because that is a good question, whether Bayard Elementary is good to go and then Central is not because of something they found. I don't know if it's district-wide or that, but I will ask that question tomorrow. So I leave it in your hands there. As the earliest one would be a month, and the month would throw us into March. And Joyce, do you have a calendar? But we do have March 11th as the record, and I hope you all remember. Then March 11th, and then the following week is spring break. But let me throw a wrench in here, guys. At the last secretary's meeting, that was last Thursday, with the superintendents and chartered schools, they want us to consider closing down for 2 weeks after spring break too, okay? Because of the people traveling in spring break and all that. But that would be an option for the school board to guide me on it. We don't have to do it, but they're recommending. That's what it is. So there you have my comments, and I'm ready to answer any questions you may have.
I know that Mr. Cordova and I have a meeting also. Well, I can bring this up later when we get to the pods. Any other questions on this?
I've got a little comment, Mr. Mendoza. I have been talking to several of the school boards around the state, and I know I got the results on the Socorro School District, and they are opening one school at a time. And what, I don't know how they did it, but what they're doing is, last week they met on Monday and they voted to open up their junior high. And then I think tomorrow they're going to vote on the high school. So I think that's something that's a possibility to work out. I'm not suggesting by any means that we do it that way, but that I've been talking to them.
Okay. I talked to Lordsburg also today, and we also contacted the TRC. Lordsburg is staying remote, and TRC is back. They're opening up, and Lordsburg's not doing any sports, so that's where I don't know, Mr. Cordova, I'm sorry, Mr. Sepulveda, were you in contact with TRC or today?
No, I wasn't able to, sir.
Okay. All right.
Any other thing? Well, call for a motion on item 8. To review, this is to review what it's, just like it says there. It does not say to reopen, it says to review.
I'd like to make a motion that we decide on a reentry date.
I don't know if we can make motions or if that's if we can only do on recommendations, but I agree with Gabe.
I don't know if we can make a motion because it's not an action item. That's the problem. Maybe you can add it to that one, worded in a way that review and something, but I don't know that we can make just a motion to set on a date.
Can we make a point of clarification that the agenda has always been that we consider the readiness and are prepared to make a decision every board meeting that we get the review. And that's been the intent of the reviews, and it's certainly not a deviation from reviewing. It's a matter of determining whether we're ready, and that's really what the intent of the.
Mr. Cordova?
The way that I interpret this thing, it says review on status. But the way that I gather is after we review it, and we've reviewed it for quite a while, we got to make a decision on entry. The thing that I don't know for sure is the date. I mean, what date do we come up with? But my understanding is that we make a decision on entry. Thank you.
Okay.
What I need from
my question on that would be that our decision on entry would be after, because right now we like I said, we got 4 weeks to make to make another decision then. So that would take us into March, which we already said that March 11 we'd make the other decision. So I don't know. However everybody wants to do it, but no, I know we need to take action on this one tonight.
The way that I understand it is Mr. Mendoza cannot go to the state and tell them that we're ready for inspection unless we have a date for them, a date when we shoot to reopen. That's the way that I gather it. So waiting 4 weeks is just going to throw us 8 weeks into a decision, and I do remember that whenever we voted on the first 9 weeks or to go into March, that we also said yes, but we also said if there is a change, we'll come back to it. And there is a change right now, so we need to go back to it.
Okay. I'll take a recommendation.
Board members, I'm looking at the calendar right here. And the 4 weeks, the 15th, 22nd, 1st, and 8th, will throw us right there on the week of March 11th. And then we go on spring break the following week. So an actual start date could be March 22nd, targeted with that, okay? Because we have spring break that's affecting that.
Okay.
So there's
make a recommendation.
Make a recommendation that you set the tentative date of March 22nd to return hybrid and have the choice of remote, so that I can be able to work with the state marshal or whatever. And if he clears us up any early, we can come back and revisit this and start earlier once we get a clear shot. But that gives me an answer, a date to visit with the fire marshal's office tomorrow. I don't know, so,
So can you
heard your
repeat the
recommendation.
date,
Do I hear
Mr.
a motion?
Mendoza?
sorry?
Can you repeat the date, please?
Okay, 4 weeks, it would be 1, 2, 3, it would be, the 4 weeks would be the March 8th through the 12th. Okay, but then the next week we go on spring break. And then we come back on the 22nd of March after spring break.
But Mr. Mendoza, the way that I understand it is you give the state a date when we want to open, and that'll probably take them 2 weeks to schedule that person, which would be the 22nd of February. And then after, if he comes the week of 22nd of February, then we would have 2 weeks of waiting from them, and that would put us into opening in early March before spring break.
Well, it takes
That
us
is
into
my
the,
understanding on it.
okay, but it takes us into the week of spring break too. But what I'm saying is we have a board, we're scheduled for board meeting on March the 8th, okay? See, we can, if we have the results from the fire marshal, and then we can actually open on the 9th, we can have a board meeting and get it going. But then we also have another board meeting, and Irene, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's February 22nd, right? Oh, yes, it's gonna be February
Yes, February
22nd.
22nd.
February 22nd. So we can visit, like you're saying, Mr. Guardiana, and see where we're at that point with the fire marshal on it. So I would also be very, we can also entertain the date of March 9th. That would be after the board meeting too.
So my understanding is if you shoot for the 22nd with state fire marshal, you're talking February 22nd to reopen, right? That's what you would tell the state.
Not February, March.
No, sir. That's probably the earliest we can get the state marshal here is the 22nd of February. Okay? And then he has to go back and submit his report, and then we'll get a letter sometime the first week of March. Okay?
And then we'd be in spring break, so that's why you're proposing the 22nd.
That's correct. But we can also, and again, Mr. Holguin, that would be a tentative date. Depending on how quick the fire marshal can get us done, we might be able to jump it a couple of weeks earlier. That's what I'm saying.
Wouldn't it be more likely that if we have the earlier date, like the 8th or the 9th, as you mentioned, and the fire marshal approves us, we can go right straight to that. But if we submit one saying the 22nd, the fire marshal may give us approval starting at that date and or later.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for them, but I'm just saying that what I need is a tentative date that will shoot so that I can get the fire marshals and them scheduled to come on board. Okay.
And then
So
hope
Mr.
that the fire marshal says everything is okay, or we got to change a whole bunch of things, and that's gonna bump us up again.
So,
Well, so then it would make
Holguin,
sense to try to schedule the fire marshal earlier than later.
Exactly.
all right.
What's the soonest we can schedule the fire marshal?
I don't know till tomorrow. That's the thing. Not only that, can you believe he has 140 somewhat campuses that he has to take care of? They have to take care of just with Albuquerque alone. See, we got to get in line, and hopefully he'll send a local fire marshal that's local that can do it for us and do
The sooner
that.
we get in, sorry. So the sooner we get in line, the better.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying. But I need a date.
Do I hear a recommendation? Do I hear a motion? Sorry.
the recommendation has to come first. And really, Mr. Mendoza, I would really like the recommendation to come from you.
Okay, no problem, but the thing is, the recommendation can be the 8th, and hopefully we'll be ready. So the administration recommends that we have a target date of March 8th, and so I can schedule the marshals, and this will give Joyce and Mr. Carrillo and the principals a target date to get things ready, so to speak, and get things going. And then at the board meeting that night, we can discuss and see how we are. And I think that puts pressure on them to get us a fire marshal down here quicker. The sooner the better. So the recommendation's the 8th.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Escape.
Motion by Mr. Holguin, second.
A second. This is Gilbert.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any other comments?
I would like to, I don't know if it would be in combination with this, but actually for us to consider, and I may not be popular for saying this, but canceling spring break. I mean, they've basically been at home for months, you know? Let's get them back in school.
Is that possible?
I don't know. That's something that you'd have to get with Mr. Carrillo and Joyce on it.
Oh, no, the state is the one that approves the calendars, you know, and we're stuck there. I don't even think we should
that's
try.
right.
We are stuck
That's
with
right.
it.
The state approves their calendar.
And a lot of teachers will not be traveling because of the COVID. I can't hold them to that, but you know, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Any other questions?
Recommendations, the 8th.
Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes. Motion passes. Okay. Moves us to item B.
Point of order here, Mr. President and members of the board. We have a special guest waiting to address us. And Mr. Holguin, are you on?
I am, yes, sir. So actually, Kathy Whiteman, she had another commitment and she got off the call. She asked if we could reschedule her.
Okay, well, I do want you to apologize on my part. We shouldn't have had to wait that long, but Irene, make sure we contact her and schedule her for the next meeting. Okay.
So she actually put a comment in the chat, very positive. She said, "Hi all, thank you for your efforts to return our youth to school. You are an inspiring group. Gabe, please contact me at your convenience to see if we might reschedule a presentation to this hardworking school board. Best to all of you, Kathy Whiteman."
Okay, Irene, we'll put her on for the next one, and then it's old business.
Mr. Mendoza and Irene, for the next board meeting, I would suggest that we put her at the very beginning of the board meeting so she can do the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, will do. Mr. Mendoza, may I say something on that note? We did meet with Kathy this morning, Maureen, Mr. Peña, and myself, and we did discuss some issues and scheduling to try and get the 4 service classes going as dual enrollment classes. So she asked us more on scheduling conflicts, and so we did meet with her, and hopefully we can get that going for next year.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Holguin, if you talk with her, tell her that we're sure sorry.
Yes, sir, I will do that.
Okay.
Hey, that moves us to item B.
Well, with item B, and remember, before we get started in item B, we had a discussion on that already last meeting, and it was tabled because we had 2 board members that did not receive the materials think it was you, Mr. Holguin, and then Mr. Guardiana. So now I'll turn it over to Jose Carrillo, Dr. Carrillo, and Edward Peña. Can you guys get on, please?
Mr. President, members of the board, you do have the packages and we stand for questions.
Any questions?
Sorry about that. It was clicked off. There's more questions that come from the content rather than, like, for instance, this has a number of different options. It doesn't say which one we're taking to assess the readiness for graduation. And so I'd rather hear more of a presentation of what it is that's been decided, because it leaves options open. So if you could go.
The state has been very supportive of our seniors due to the COVID-19 national emergency. And what they have done is they have provided us with options for our students. If one doesn't work, they can use another one. So there's different needs for different students. So for example, right now, if you look at what was highlighted, the end of course exams. If students pass the end of course exams, then they've met competency. The second is addition of use of banked assessments. But if you recall, what we said the last time was that the latest that they had given us that day of the board meeting on Tuesday was that students, all that they have to do is pass their class, and they have met competency. So that's why we said, in a way, there's a moot point for this year for seniors. If they have met the requirements in regards to credits and passed their current classes, then they're eligible for graduation.
When I see the part about passing the final exam, and it says in creative writing or writing competency, does that then apply to all the different courses?
Mr. Peña, you want to go ahead and answer that? Because this is already for this is what we had previously.
When you're looking at the content, it is primarily content that would measure any grade level being above English grade level 10. And of course, that would be dependent on the level of math. So for example, in language arts, and which would be reading and writing competency, you would be looking at the competency of English 11 or English 12, since they primarily cover language and literature in combination of the two. When you're talking about math, the math competency would be any competency from Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and above, with a graduation completion requirement of Algebra 2. So for this school year, it would be the completion of Algebra 2 or higher would show competency for our seniors. It's the same thing in history. There is no general competency for history, so it would be anything in New Mexico history, world history, U.S. history, or government and economics. And then for science, it would be the same, anything having to be in relation to biology, physical science, environmental science, chemistry, physics, and advanced biology. So yes, there is a large variety of methods by which students can gain competency on a normal basis, because what the state has done is they have changed from what is called an alternate demonstration of competency to what is known as a demonstration of competency. And that demonstration of competency basically comes with a list of many items that the student can use to determine their competency in that area. So what we've done is, in our policy, we've just basically followed all those areas, and we've expanded it a little bit more by using those tables that I addressed in the packet. In the tables, what it does is it gives the student a point value that they can use in each and every one of those areas to build a competency score. So in that case, what the state has allowed us to do is use a combination of many of the alternatives or the many methods by which a student can gain competency to build a combination of the picture of how that student is developed and shown competency. And then in addition to that, it would be the inclusion of the portfolio, which would give a written explanation as to how the student met competency. Finally, I also have the inclusion of a career inventory, because one of the things that the state wanted to do was to see if we could work with and make sure that the students are looking at a pathway after graduation. Now, one of the things that's coming up in the future is the idea of what is known as capstones. We are not part of the capstone project. It's still new. Some of the schools are implementing it, and they are in a pilot program. And the capstone project is actually a project by which students will be able to develop portfolios in areas of interest and then present to a board or present to a panel. And then that panel would determine their competency in a specific area of reading, writing, math, science, or social studies.
So in this case, then, and it's much, I appreciate having the materials. And the one thing that kind of begs the question, you say that the student is going to be filling out how it is that they meet the criteria.
No, I do.
You will?
I do. I have all the records, and what I do is with each student, I review where they've actually met competency or what their score would be, and then we determine the point value to determine if they've actually met it with a combination of many items.
So when you determine that, you have a number of different choices to use to get the student to that level of graduation, correct?
Yes.
And who then would review it after that? Is there another review, or is that the final say?
The principal.
The principal?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I appreciate having the material. It makes it a lot more, I would have never never understood what the content of it was.
And all these scores that I'm referring to when I visit with the students are documented scores within our PED system. So they aren't stored, there aren't any values that are not in existence for the student record at the state level.
Very good.
And just FYI, this is a very unique situation. Students start as freshmen and they start building their competencies, their credits. And right now, because of the pandemic, the state has been very supportive in wanting to expand how students will be meeting competency. So we're in a very unique situation. And like I said before, it changes on a daily basis, just like it did last week. So I'm glad that you have the materials and that you understand them.
I get a better picture of it anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Gabe. I'm good. I have no questions.
Any other things?
There's no action on this.
Yeah. Okay, it moves us to item C. Mr. Diaz.
Oh, I apologize. Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Mendoza. You have my plan, and I don't have anything additional to add, unless you have any other questions. I'll leave it open to questions at this time.
I have a question, Mr. Diaz. The pods, okay, is that open to all kids or is just to athletes?
Whatever kid is wanting to. So once again, we have based on decisions made this evening, we will have meeting on Wednesday with the coaches. We will again send out surveys, and we send them out to all the kids as to who wants to participate, and based on the responses is how we create our pods.
Okay, because I was just wondering, with the records that you guys gave us a couple of meetings ago on the failure rate, I know that there'll be quite a few of them, according to the failure rate, that will not be eligible when we start to play. So this thing is open to any one of them.
Yes, and as far as the failure rates are concerned, I did run, it's been about a couple of weeks since the last time I ran the failure rates, but we were at about 20, I want to say 24 students with one F that were part of the pods in the past. And then out of those 24, only 12 of them were more than one F. And so we would have about 12 that we could still consider as eligible based on the current rules of eligibility. So we'd be looking at 12 kids that would not participate. I mean, obviously that's old numbers. We'd have to run that again.
I thought that if they had one F, they would not be eligible.
So as of the new guidelines, they may have one F, and if they have one F, we can do a cumulative review on them. So that is allowed at this moment.
Mr. Cordova, you had a question.
Well, the question, and you, Mr. Diaz, you guys are touching on it right now. My question was, what was finally decided on eligibility? Was it 1F they could play if they had a 2.0, or 2Fs they couldn't?
No, there's always a minimum requirement, and the NMA always does a minimum requirement. And then we can apply a greater requirement if need be, or if we choose to. Right now we've decided that 1F would be okay based on, there's a lot of different criteria. We all know that there's a lot of variables, but we would have to cum. So they would have to have a cumulative review. And based off of that cumulative review, if they had a 2.0, they would be eligible.
Mr. Diaz, I talked to the Activities Association today, Mr. Scott over there.
Scott Owen, yes, sir.
Scott Owens, and he exactly told me what you're saying. And he said whenever they went to discuss it, it was tabled. So we're doing that the way that we did it before. So that clears it up for me, and I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Mr. Mendoza?
Yes, I have a recommendation for the board. The administration recommends that we approve reopening the pods effective, is it Wednesday, Nelson, or Thursday? When are you going to say that so we can include it? Or is it next week?
We would probably be looking at least a week from now. We have to make sure that all our coaches are retrained. We got to make sure that there's a few pieces in place prior to starting.
Okay, the recommendation is that we open the following Monday, and what is that, guys? The date? That would be
February 15th.
Yeah, February 15th. Okay, so that we proceed for the opening of the pods on the 15th of February.
And this is just for conditioning only, and it's 4-1, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And then this would also include indoors as well, now that we have our filtration system. So I'm asking that we allow that.
We have that's ready?
Yes, with Mr. Peru's report that we had 120 of the air filtration purification systems were delivered today, and that they would start delivering tomorrow. So that gives us enough time to get them in place where we need them by.
So the ones in the gym, they don't have to be mounted any particular place, or they're just on the floor?
We would place them strategically throughout. I mean, that's a bigger space. We understand that. And we also would be opening, leaving the doors opening. And then once we open the, I don't want to say the air conditioner because I know it's cold, but once we open, there's a switch where we can open the rafters, where we can get more air circulating through there as well.
And with the weather like it is,
That's why we're asking to go indoors.
yeah, but then you're opening the doors and opening the filters, the vents.
Well,
What
if we
difference
needed to, in addition, we could. But we would have those air purification systems in place.
Well, I sure hope so.
If we don't have those, then we won't go indoors. We will make sure that we have those in place prior to going indoors.
I would hope that would be part of the motion.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Diaz, Mr. Diaz, this
Yes,
is
sir.
Frank Cordova. That's
Yes,
one of the
sir.
things that Scott Owens and I discussed today. And
Mhm.
and he said that would be okay, exactly the way you're talking.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other thing? Okay. You heard the recommendation. Do I hear motion?
So moved. This is Gabe.
Motion by Mr. Olguin, second.
Gomez, second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any other questions? Call for the vote. Mr. Olguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes. Motion carries. Moves us to public input on anything on the agenda. Victor, what do we have?
Hello, President Sepulveda, members of the board. On the YouTube, we did have a lot of comments. We did put a message out there. Questions would be answered, but there aren't any questions. It's mostly comment and conversations. Like last week, just not as negative. I'm not sure how you want me to proceed.
Well, I can hear we can hear the comments, but conversations, I don't think we need to carry them on.
That's the hard part to differentiate between them. I did share the ones that did follow protocol and submit requests through the support account, the support at Cobre email. I did forward that to all Cobre board members, Superintendent Mendoza, Joyce Varela, and Dr. Jose Carrillo. All of you should have those. So you tell me how to proceed, I'll proceed. It's just it's very lengthy, and if this is the way we continue, I think we should put public comment after every item, so we stay on task.
Irene?
Victor, can you send those to me also?
I'll figure out how to. Oh, send emails from the support account. I can definitely do that.
Yes, thank you.
You know, if this were an open session, even the conversations would be heard. So I would appreciate it if all of them were read.
I'd agree
Any
with
other
that.
comments?
I would agree with that.
Victor, this is George. If you can also forward them to me in case there's some questions I need to answer. If you can get that to me also, please. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'll start. Ana Treviso, at this point, why even open schools? 2 to 3 weeks for the fire marshal to come in, then 2 to 3 weeks to get the okay, so possibly 6 weeks. If you said yes today, that already puts us at the end of March. Araneta Costa, the mitigation strategies, if followed by the classroom teacher, it would be sanitary, more than the cafeteria with higher number of students. Our comment, during live streaming, questions will only be read aloud from persons who fully identify themselves. Inappropriate comments will not be read and may be removed. Please be courteous and respectful. And then someone, Crazy Brat, she agrees with Ana Treviso. Ana Treviso, there's too many questions and not nearly enough answers. I said, Crazy Brad, exactly. They have gotten accustomed to online and being just about mid-semester. It makes no sense. Arthur Quintana, do we have enough teachers to do hybrid? Ana Treviso, at this point, just let's get the game plan for next year, get schools safe, work on contingency plans, work on getting through this year so our kids don't suffer grade-wise. Crazy Brad agrees with her. Bethany Zamora, staff member. Do parents know about the possibility of shuffling kids and teachers? Marciela Corral, I agree with Ana Tapicio. Canuto Molina, that would include and exclude students. Exclusion would not be good. Rita Montenegro, staff member. I know as a SPED teacher, we have made multiple schedules to accommodate all of the possibilities. Ana Tapicio, 5-foot hazel eyes, laugh out. Okay, so I want to know what is the benefit of starting now? Why not put all this energy into planning next year? You're looking at least end of March to start. There are too many questions and not enough time to get answers. Yeah, Tricia Zimmerman. I was under the impression the same bottle cannot be touched by multiple kids. No sharing of items of any kind, tissues, pencils, papers. None of that can be shared. Even books cannot be shared from one class to the next, is my impression. If there's an outbreak, what will happen? Crazy Brad, is all this planning and effort worth the risk? No amount of caution taken is going to eliminate that risk. By the time we open up, it's too little time left in the semester for it to be with all this worth. Stevie Dominguez, staff member, is everything that is required has been read, reread, and read over again. Please don't discredit the work that has been done. You all don't understand the work that has been completed. Stephen Gonzalez, thank you, Mr. Cordoval, bringing up that to the president about the action item. Stevie Dominguez, if you feel that your student would not be safe, you have the choice to keep them at home. This is what is being provided to parents, choices. And at Treviso, I think it's more, we have had no answers, so I choose to believe we are not ready. Trey Burnett, I agree with Stevie. With hybrid, parents still have the option to keep their students in an online-only format if they choose. Marciela Corral, I agree with Ana Treviso. Crazy, the issue is quality education as well. Shuffling kids, teachers, I give much credit to all involved in planning. I just don't understand the rush. I know that, look at the big picture. Stevie Dominguez, you're right. We don't have to do this, but why does the board continue to avoid making a choice? If you knew what everyone is going through to prepare to keep your children safe, you would understand. Arthur Quintana, having an option to do remote or hybrid leaves it up to the parents. I understand that there are people that are scared of the virus and people who want to go on with some sort of normalcy. It is a win-win situation. Marcela Corral, what about the custodians? Paul Garcia, I would rather we try hybrid this school year than that way we can start the new school year in August. Most kinks would be worked out. Stevie Dominguez, what about custodians? Ana Treviso, I totally understand and appreciate everything teachers and staff are doing, but unless I get a guarantee that my child is going to be safe and that every question I have is answered, I'm going to worry. Arthur Quintana, if we start this school year, we can adapt and learn what works and what does not. Crazy Brad, I appreciate all the efforts. I think it's going to be too much of a challenge, and quality education is at risk for both remote and hybrid kids. Stevie Dominguez, of course you are, and you're entitled to your worry. I am worried too, but I also cannot give up my life. I still have to run errands, go to Walmart, doctor appointments, dentist. Arthur Quintana, it is a risk, but there is a risk that you can get this at any public place. And at Treviso, as do I, but when I go out, my child is under my care. Genevieve Estrada, if our smallest school in the district does not have the manpower to operate, how are the larger schools going to do it? Stevie Dominguez, we have way more safety features in schools than at those places, than all those places. I'd be a hypocrite if I said I didn't do those things, but yet I can send my kid to school at 50%. Bethany Zamora, when would parents be notified about possible shuffling of students and teachers? Paul Chavez, this is B. Quintana, and I agree with Maureen. Helen Hoguin, I do agree with Stephen and Art. This is a very unique situation through this pandemic. We have all learned a new normal, and to try and learn the new normal is a must and a choice. And a Treviso, telling that well, like I said, it's all conversations. Stephen Gonzalez, Mr. Sepulveda, I'm sorry, but we all know what the risk is. We have been in a pandemic for nearly a year. Bethany Zamora, I don't know that parents are aware of possible school changes as well as changes in teachers. Helen Hoguin, the questions our school board asks are so incredibly important to hear, and for sure, keeping our kids at the forefront is their #1 priority. I love that. Jacob Martinez, we all understand that nothing will return to normal for the foreseeable future. Ana Treviso, although all these topics and discussions are great, I just wish it would have been this intense at the beginning, not 4 months to the end of the school year. Jacob Martinez, of course, Anna, but if we wait till next year, we'll still be in the same boat. Stephen Gonzalez, change and adapt. Anna Treviso, not if they start now. Arthur Quintana, kids I know are suffering from mental health issues on top of physical health, such as obesity. There are real issues kids are dealing with, and hybrid can help with some of these problems. Helen Hoguin, businesses, companies, restaurants, and all public facilities that had the benefit of learning to adapt. We all need to adapt and learn. This pandemic has taught us that cleanliness is key. Arthur Quintana, look at the data on suicide rates among students during the pandemic. That is why some schools are reopening. Hannah Burnett, Anna, the schools have been working on mock trials already. We demonstrate how the day will go. We have teachers as the students for these trials. Hopefully the videos of these will be posted soon. Ana Treviso, asking the board, can we take time to get volunteers, staff, and students and run mocks on and show parents how school wouldn't run daily, or yeah, something. And then Acosta, these videos are ready. We are waiting for admin approval. They are ready for Bayard. Bo Chavez, B. Quintana, too much change for our little ones at this point, in my opinion, but high school, that's different. I believe they can adjust, again, only if parents consent to do so. Ana Treviso, I'm sorry, but actually seeing would be better than watching. Nana Costa, if we get permission, we will have Bayard Elementary mock videos to show the procedures and how the school day is different. We will put them up on the district website and Facebook. And Treviso comment to Annette, that's what I mean. You have it ready, and it's important as this is. The video has not yet been approved. Why not? Helen Hoagie and I agree with B. Younger kids need stability. Older kids can adapt and learn how to adapt faster. High schoolers are getting ready for movement and change. College is around the corner for them. Then, of course, these mock drills looked at COVID safe procedures and daily practice. We made changes and modifications to how a school teacher runs her day from arrival to school through dismissal. And at Treviso, Art, you're right, and something needs to happen now. Our kids are suffering mentally, and that's scary. And then, of course, we believe these videos will be helpful for parents and students to see how the day will work. Stevie Dominguez, if I decide to send my children to school, what makes it anyone else's business? If you're adhering to the state mandates, my kid who goes to school shouldn't be around your kid who stays home, right? Stephen Gonzalez, the discussion of neighboring districts have been brought up, and comments like they aren't following guidelines is thrown out too. which to me is wrong. Bo Chavez, P. Quintana, well said, Mr. Avalos. Paul Garcia, well said, Mr. Avalos. Tricia Zimmerman, kids jumping back and forth makes it super hard on teachers. Canuto Molina, unfortunately, New Mexico has not prioritized teachers. I wish that wasn't the case. However, it is reality. Tony Holguin, it's sad. It's sad, but the truth. I agree. Stevie Dominguez, absolutely. Thank you. Just make a decision. Ana Trevisa, there you go. Just make a decision. Nicaragua, stay remote. Don't chance it. It's almost the end of the school year. Steven Gonzalez, thank you. Vote. Stevie Dominguez, I think it's incredibly disrespectful that no one acknowledges the healthcare workers, Walmart workers, Snappy truck drivers that have been working all day in and out without a vaccine. It's their lives. Canuto Molina, I believe we're still in yellow and in Grant County, according to the New Mexico Department of Health dashboard. Stevie Dominguez are of no less value. Tricia Zimmerman, Stevie S, but they're not in the same room. They're in the same group, 7 hours or even an hour. They can walk in and out, and they are great value. Jackie Gonzalez, we need to make a decision already. The uncertainty is more damaging to our kids and family. And the Treviso, parents flip-flop, I believe, because there are no answers. Rita Montenegro, if we're already in red because people are going out, at least let them go out to school and get the education, care, camino that some get only in school. We're not requiring it, but allow these who would like the opportunity to make that decision. Steven Gonzalez, okay, so don't send your kids. No one ever said that the virus won't be there. Stevie Dominguez, yes, they are, Trish, face-to-face for hours on end. What do you mean? Arthur Quintana, reminder that we have a choice, remote or hybrid. Anna Morrison, Stevie, they're rotating classes, and we are with different people all day. It's just conversations. Anna Treviso, if the board can't decide, imagine how parents feel. Anna Morrison, plus we aren't in school all week, so it would be more safe. Stevie Dominguez, ignorance is bliss. Just make a decision. Bo Chavez, B. Cantina, I agree with Stevie and Jessica. Tricia Zimmerman, I just mean that students are in the same room at least an hour. Walmart workers and others probably are not in the same room with the same people 2 days in a row for an hour or so. Their contact is probably under 5 minutes. I am dismissing their worth at all. Maria Lopez, comparing our district to Silver and saying they are hybrid, yet Stout has just had one test positive and had to quarantine the whole class. Don't compare. Look at our community only. Stevie Dominguez, but the housekeepers, janitors, CNAs, nurses, docs, and everyone else are 12 and more hours to be exact. They've all done it without vaccine, without proper PPE, reusing, do not reuse masks. Tricia Zimmerman, true, but it's scary that they had to go through that. Stevie Dominguez, respect therapists, giving, or respiratory therapists, giving treatments to vent patients, risking their lives face-to-face, all to make sure their people are good. I know you guys want to, what's best for the kids, give those who want a chance. Tricia Zimmerman is just super no-win situation. I feel our kids, our community, and families. Trujillo boys, if the board puts much an effort, our kids, it just make. Steven Gonzalez, amen, Mr. Trujillo. Bo Chavez, B. Quintana. So what does this mean? Maureen, yes, sir, no problem. Ana Treviso, I want to say thank you, Mr. Diaz. You always have answers. It's refreshing. Chrissy Ortiz, allow more spots for hybrid attendance. They can walk at the end of the year for graduation. Bo Chavez, B. Quintana, thank you, Mr. Diaz. Stephen Gonzalez, will the emails from the community be read tonight? I think that's important for us parents and community members to hear. Bo Chavez, we can kind of agree. I would also like to hear them. Ana Treviso, at the end of the day, COVID is the enemy, not each other. We are all worried and all want our kids safe. God bless. That's the last one from the YouTube. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, thank you, Victor.
Yeah, Mr. Sepulveda, that takes us to item B on administration.
Yes.
Food service presentation. Alma, thank you for being so patient. You just sat there through all the meeting. Thank you. And you remember, Mr. Guardiana, it was you that had a question because I wrote it down on keeping the food warm,
Absolutely.
right? And
Yes.
Alma, you answered that real quick for me today, and this is at the elementary, okay? So, Mr. Guardiana, you want to repeat the question for her?
Sure, but regarding the comments, can we make can we respond to the part about making the videos that they mentioned active in our website? That's one I think we could answer, as well as the last question in terms of if it's a possibility for the students that are ready for graduation to forego the in-house option.
Let me answer you, Mr. Guardiana. I had asked for Ms. Acosta to meet with me because I've seen the videos and I have certain questions on some. They will be released once we discuss that, and they should be released tomorrow, okay?
That's
so that's no problem there. Now, as far as the graduation, why don't we leave that question, and we need to have Sandra and the administration at the high school discuss that, because you need specific persons. They got to go look it up. But let me tell them tomorrow to provide that for you guys and respond that. Okay, that's
and just an assurance of, just an assurance also as well about student and teacher reassignments.
Sure. Okay.
What was the question on forego what, Mr. Guadiana?
People that seniors that are ready, that are already met their criteria for graduation, to kind of have them either stay on remote, but not to come in to in person, because that would if it's already taken up, so that that would open up the in person for somebody else and not have to require another teacher, perhaps. That's what I got the question as.
Okay.
Okay, but that's something we want the high school administration to.
Sure.
Please. Okay.
Okay, Alma, we're sorry it take us so long, but go ahead.
What I was asking, Alma, was when you provide the meals, a lot of them have to be heated. And what is the possibility of the food being heated? How is it going to be done? And how are we going to ensure the temperatures are right when they get to the kids?
Okay. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Mendoza. You have to keep in mind that right now we are delivering twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. Okay, we pack both breakfast and lunch. We do cook or heat or whatever it might be to get that lunch bag out. But please keep in mind, we don't have the proper cabinets to keep temps at what they should be. So I, in the past, have sent memos home telling parents what we are doing, and that they have to look through the bag and refrigerate what needs to be refrigerated or frozen or reheated at the time of consumption because it's already cold.
Alma, my question only pertains to if we go hybrid, how are we going to feed the kids in the classroom? And is the classroom the best place for it?
Okay, Alma, if I may interrupt, Alma,
If
what
we-
I remember, Alma, you use the ice chest and you heat up and they take it to the
Correct.
classroom. That's how you
Correct.
take the warm part of that thing. So can you elaborate? Because Mr. Guardiana is referring to only when we start hybrid, okay?
Okay.
Not summer,
Okay.
just hybrid.
Okay, so if the district chooses to go hybrid because of the CDC guidelines, it would be time consuming to feed the students in the cafeteria. So our only option would be to feed in the classroom. We cook what we have to cook. We wrap and we put it in ice chest. We've done this in the past, and it does keep temperature to what it needs to be as long as they get distributed as soon as they get it there at whatever classroom it may be. We've never had issues on this. The only thing that teachers need to keep in mind that there's paperwork that they need to submit to me on the daily, twice a day, if it's breakfast and lunch that's going to be provided, as far as counts, and that's it. Just basically just the counts. So, but in the past we have done breakfast in the classroom, and that's worked out, and it's been okay. The only other little issue that we've had is that teachers tend to save for the student that's going to come in late or the student that gets hungry or so, and that has been an issue because they start hoarding and it gets put in the closet and then we get rodents and everything else. But as far as keeping the food hot that we distribute, it will be put in ice chest. That those are our only means of transporting food to the students.
How will the food be heated at the schools, or would it be heated in another place centrally?
No. At the
You're
schools,
muted.
we're right now we're working out of Elementary. So that's where we would do all the prep, and then we'd run everything out from there. Keep in mind, however, that we would still be feeding the students that have chosen to stay remotely. And because of that, I'm sure everybody, the principals want their school to get fed at a certain time, or, but things are going to have to change a little just so that we can have time to go out to the public and feed the kids that have chosen to stay remotely.
How will you have enough staff to do both? You're muted again.
Right
You're
now,
still
we
muted.
won't have enough staff, but I think I just have a bad connection.
It says your mic is off, though. Oh, there you go.
Right. It's on now, but I've been having a bad connection all evening. Staff, I'm gonna need staff. We will have to hire staff because we won't. Right now, I've got 3 sites that we have no staff at. So we will be needing to hire staff.
Okay. Thank you, Alma.
Any other questions, board members? Nothing? Okay, Mr. Sepulveda, we can move. Thank you, Alma.
Okay. Thank you, Alma. Okay.
Thank you.
That moves us to
Thank
the next thing on the item B on administration, Mr. Mendoza.
No, sir, we're on superintendent's report, Mr. Sepulveda.
Okay,
Item A is a reminder, the district will be closed next Monday. It's President's Day, February 15th. Our next board meeting will be February 22nd, again. And a reminder, board members, and Mr. Sepulveda, will you please comment on this also? We got to be on virtually tomorrow at 5 o'clock till approximately 6:30 to discuss and answer any questions with the community in reference to our Senate Bill 9 election, okay? Mail-in ballot election. So Irene, everything's posted and ready to go. And you all are welcome to sign in, but if you can't make it, it's understood. Okay? So with that in mind, that brings us to student report.
student report.
Toya, are you online, please?
I'm here. I honestly have no report for this week, just a lot of mixed emotions and don't know where to start.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Thank you, Toya. We have
brings us to public input. Victor, do we have anything else?
On my end, what I can notice, I don't see anything, sir. Daniel, do you see anything on your end? I believe the last ones were Christy Ortiz. Yeah, and the last ones were from Christy Ortiz, and Daniel did read those out. It finally came up on my end, but there is no other comments, Mr. Sepulveda and board members.
Okay.
But I do want to bring forward that I did send all of you guys an email to all your accounts. So if you do a reply all, you can reply to every correspondence from individuals that reached out.
Okay.
And those will be posted on the website?
After your responses, I'll post whatever's needed. Yes.
Cool. Okay. Items for next agenda.
Kathy Whiteman's presentation.
Yes, I already have that one down.
I would like
anything else?
I'd like to request a determination for workshop for board assessment on self-assessment.
Okay, I called Joe Gillian for a copy of the board self-assessments that he's got, and he's gonna mail me a couple of different ones that we can pick through. So as soon as I get those, I'll mail them out to you guys.
Did you also ask for the hours that we have attended for CEUs?
Yes, and your hours were cumulative from the beginning to now. The rest of us are just what we got last year.
Why is mine different than your guys?
I don't know. That's why I asked, and they haven't answered me.
Can we get it cumulative for everybody for at least the last 5 years?
Yeah, you probably can. I'll try to see if Lorraine can do it.
Thank you.
She'll be in there. I think she's in there on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'll try to get her on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to add a review on the status of the pods, how they're going, and the opportunity to move into the next stage of that to prepare for competition.
Okay. You hear
You're
that,
down
Mr.
it?
Mendoza?
Yes, I want to, Irene, write it down for me, please. Make sure. We'll get it in there, Gabriel.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing that we need to remember, Gabe, is that the governor has not given the okay to start any pay until the 22nd, I think, or something like that. It's what I think it's the 22nd that we can start play. Right? I'm in practice right now. Right now, it's only conditioning.
That is correct.
Anything else? Motion to
Yes,
adjourn.
it's also,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's also my understanding that we have to be in hybrid for 2 weeks prior to entering into any competition. So I'm just saying, let's get it on the agenda now so we can be ahead of it and, give Mr. Diaz the opportunity to present to us how pods are going and how it looks, if we're gonna be ready or not.
No, this week.
Board of Directors meeting and then the training on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah,
And Sally
my understanding is that Sally Marquez will be there to talk to us at the board of directors.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
Move.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
You too.
You as well, senor.